My show is on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9, 10 a.m. the Superstation. So today's presentation is Black Panther analysis, African culture, African history, and Afrofuturism, okay? And if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, you can contact me, email me at info@africanhistorynetwork.com, info@africanhistorynetwork.com, and I speak at Kwanzaa celebrations, African American History Month. I speak at schools, churches, etc. All right, and then we have pamphlets coming around also with my information on it as well. You can listen to audio podcasts of my radio shows at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have over 800 audio podcasts there going back 8 years. All right, and be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter also. All right, so anytime I do a presentation, I know I'm going to say some things people never heard before. I may say some things that people disagree with. I may say some things people don't like, okay? So I usually have people put their fingers together to form a circle. I usually say something like this: the space inside this circle represents my realm of knowledge. Everything that I think I know about whatever I think I know is represented within the circumference of the circle. I must keep in mind that there are still things to know that exist outside the circumference of my own awareness. Now, the reason why I say that is because oftentimes when people hear something that contradicts what they've been taught, what they believe, or what they think they know, they automatically reject it without doing any research to determine the validity of the new information that they're learning. And at the same time, they usually don't use that same level of scrutiny to analyze, critique, or reevaluate what it is they believe or what they think they know. Okay, so just because you know everything that you know about what you know does not mean you know everything there is to know about what you know. There's still things that exist outside the circumference of your own awareness. All right, everybody understand that? Yes. Okay, all right, good. Okay, so the film Black Panther is breaking records around the world, breaking records across the U.S., breaking records around the world. There is the most tweeted movie at 35 million tweets. It's done $1.3 billion worldwide. It's the number 3 highest grossing movie in the U.S. It just beat out Titanic. It is the probably most successful movie with a predominantly African American cast as well. Successful as far as revenue generated. It's also the most successful. It also set the record for the highest ticket sales and pre-ticket sales. Okay, that record just been broken by Avengers 3: Infinity War, which comes out April 27th. Okay, but to understand the movie, you have to understand the history of the Black Panther comic book. Okay, because the characters that we see in the movie come from the comic book. So I've read, preparation for doing this presentation. I've read over 100 articles dealing with the film Black Panther. I've seen the movie twice. I went and studied a lot of the history of the Black Panther comic book. There's actually a book that I ordered that came out January 2018 from Marvel called The Ultimate Black Panther Guide. It's 200 pages. Deals with the last 52 years with the Black Panther comic book series, the Black Panther character, okay? And I had it, I left it at home. I was looking at it before I left because I was finishing some things in the presentation. But you can order it Amazon or your local book dealer. Check with Nandy's Knowledge Cafe in Highland Park, see if she can get it in Highland Park, Michigan, okay? Okay, so the Black Panther character was first introduced July 1966. Issue number 52 of the Fantastic Four, okay? And it was a 2-part series, issue 52 and issue 53, okay? So the Black Panther character was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, okay, for Marvel Comics. Now this was the first time we saw an African superhero, okay? This is before the Falcon, this is before Luke Cage, Power Man, this is before all of that, okay? And he was an African superhero. He was the king of Wakanda. He was king of a fictional African nation, all right? And in this comic book, right, he defeats the Fantastic Four in their own comic book. He defeats all 4 members of the Fantastic Four in their own comic book, okay? And their pages or slides from the comic book that you can see online as well, okay? And he says, "'Twas I who invited you for the hunt, but I neglected to tell you one thing. it is you who shall be hunted, okay? And this is in issue 52, and it deals with the origins of T'Challa and the Black Panther, all right? And he says, I am, as you see me, hereditary chieftain of the Wakandans, and perhaps the richest man in all the world, okay, because of the vibranium, the metal vibranium that's used to fuel their technology. He said, but it was not always so. My tale is one of tragedy and deadly revenge. So then it continues in issue 53, all right? But this is the first time we saw an African superhero like this. And the richest man in the world, that goes back to Mansa Musa, right? Emperor of Mali, who we know was the richest man in history. If you want to, that's one. Yeah. Who was the richest man in history. And there's an article from history.com, official website of the History Channel. So an article that just came out in the past couple of months that makes the connection between Mansa Musa and T'Challa and the Black Panther, okay? So, so what this did was, this opened up really a whole new world for many African Americans seeing this, okay? Now, contrary to popular belief, the Black Panther character he wasn't a copy of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Because I heard people say that. How you doing? All right, I heard people say that, and that's not true. So the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was founded October 16, 1966 in Oakland, California, okay, by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, all right? And that's a few months after this comes out. That's a few months after this comic book comes out. Now, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, they got their symbol, the Black Panther, from the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, founded by Stokely Carmichael, who later became known as Kwame Ture. That was founded in 1965 in Lowndes County, Alabama. And that was a political party designed to, one of the things they were focusing on was getting African Americans registered to vote, okay, and actually vote. So their symbol was the Black Panther, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. And in 1966, Stokely Carmichael goes to a college in Berkeley, California, and he speaks at this college, and Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale are there. And they talk to him, and they get permission to use the Black Panther symbol for their organization, which was a political party also. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense wasn't just the Black Panthers, it was also a political party as well. And any political party has to have a symbol, okay? So if you look at all the political parties, they have a symbol, all right? Okay, so when this debuts, this is the year after Malcolm X is assassinated, February 21st, 1965. This is the year after the Voting Rights Act, things like that. This is during the Civil Rights Movement and towards the beginning of the Black Power movement. So this is a pivotal time in history also. Now what's going to take place is in the early 1970s, they're going to change the name of the Black Panther to the Black Leopard because they didn't want the Black Panther associated with the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense because some negative connotations they perceived they didn't want it associated with the character. But then later they're going to change it back to the Black Panther because everybody knew with the character is the Black Panther and the Black Leopard wasn't that powerful, all right? But Stan Lee and Jack Kirby talked about, with the creation of this character, how there were no African superheroes at this time. There were no African American superheroes. And they felt that they thought there should be one. Okay, so they created one. So since then, you're going to have about 3 or 4 series of the Black Panther comic book. You have new characters added, things like this. And we see this played out in the film also. Okay, all right. So the name of the country is Wakanda, right? But Wakanda, even though it's a fictitious country, is not a made-up word. Wakanda is in some Native American languages. It's in the Sioux Indian language. It's in the Omaha Ponca language as well. But it's also in, it's a Bantu word as well. It's in African languages. It's a Bantu word. It's related to Rwanda, Buganda, and Uganda, okay? In the Native American languages, it basically means possesses secret powers. And it also can be used to reference God as well. Okay. If we look at one source, I looked at multiple sources for the Native American meaning and origins of the word Wakanda. You're going to see a few variations in the spelling. You'll see with K-O-N-D-A. You'll also see W-A-K-A-N-D-A, right? In Wisconsin, there is a Wakanda water park in Wisconsin, and they spell it just like this, W-A-K-A-N-D-A, okay? You'll see affiliations with the Omaha, the Ponca, and the Osage Native American nations or tribes as well. Here's some alternate spellings that you'll see as well, okay? And it can also mean the Native American creator, the deity, the creator also. Now, Wakanda is the great creator power of the Osage, Omaha, and Ponca tribes. Wakanda is an abstract, omnipresent creative force, come on in, who is never personified in traditional Siouan languages, referring to the Sioux Indians, and in fact did not even have a gender before the introduction of English with its gender-specific nouns, okay? There's more information. Wikipedia has some good information on Wakanda, the word Wakanda as it relates to Native American languages, so you can check that out also. You have some schools in this country named Wakanda. There's one in Nebraska named Wakanda also, okay? So they're Native American, there's a Native American connection here. There's also a book. Amazon has a book dealing with Wakanda and dealing with a Native American deity also, but it basically means possesses secret powers, okay? Now, we should not be surprised, right, that it's a Native American word, because we also know, if you read this book, how many people are familiar with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, documented evidence?
I was there for lecture.
Okay, yeah, so we had him at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe back in 2013, okay? He came twice to Nandy's, okay? So his book came out in 2011. He has a new one. He has an updated book called The First Americans Were Africans Revisited, coming out in the next couple of months or so. But his book deals with the African presence in South America, North America, and Central America, going back at least 56,000 years ago. In about 2014, there was an article from the New York Times talked about new evidence in South America that pushes that date back at least 100,000 years ago, okay? But he talks about the connection between the Africans who were in the Americas, who were here first, and then they were here before the Native Americans came into existence, okay? Now, on page 14 of his book, because see, all this relates to history. This is what people have to understand. The movie connects to African culture, because I'm going to show you that here. There are various African cultures, at least 11, that influence the movie, influence the dress, influence the languages, things like this, okay? So these are some of the things we're going to deal with in the film, but this also relates to history. All right, even though it's a fictitious movie, and this is what I explain to people, you know, what you read, you know, everything you read, see, and hear influences the way you think, feel, act, and behave. So just because the movie is fictitious does not mean it does not have influences that are realistic. It doesn't mean it doesn't have influences that come from history and culture, okay? All right, so page 14 of his book, he deals with evidence of an African presence found in Allendale County, South Carolina, that dates back at least 51,700 years ago. A campsite in Allendale County, South Carolina, by Dr. Albert Goodyear, who's an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina, okay? So here's what they found. Now this was back in 2004. So most people, when I do this presentation, most people never seen this before, never heard this before. This was 14 years ago they found this. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeleton structures, and tools. 13 different disciplines. Thoroughly documented an African presence in Allendale County, South Carolina, dating back at least 51,700 years ago. This is before Native Americans come into existence. You're going to have Asians who come to this land around 3000 BC, also called Mongols, okay, also called Mongols. The Africans and the Asians are going to intermix. Their offspring are who we have been taught to call Native Americans. That's who their offspring are. If you look at old black and white photographs of Native Americans, and I got a book at home, it was right next to me doing this putting together this presentation. You look at those old black and white photographs of Native Americans, these are usually dark-skinned people. They're usually not the very light-skinned or almost white-looking Native Americans that you see today. These were very dark-skinned people, okay? All right. His book also has 713 footnotes documenting an African presence of indigenous people in the Americas. And if you want to deal with academic standards, his book is also backed up by 7 peer-reviewed articles, which is the height of academia as well. Now this is Dr. Albert Goodyear. He's a white man. He's the one that made this discovery. This article is from November 18, 2004 from ScienceDaily.com. This is a scientific website. Name of the article is called New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 Years Ago. You don't have to take my word for this. You can go read this yourself, okay? Here is a summary of what the article says. This is not my summary. This is the summary that they put together. Radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains, where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County by University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear, indicate that the sediments containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age. Now that's not my summary, that's theirs, based upon the evidence, okay? So when I see a word like Wakanda, and I see the Native American languages, okay, I know that Native American words many times are influenced by African languages because I know who the original Native Americans were, okay, if you understand history and the chronology of history. So it doesn't surprise me, okay? Now, what is Bantu, okay? So Bantu languages are a group of some 500 languages belonging to the Bantoid subgroup of the Benue-Congo branch of the Niger-Congo language family. The Bantu languages are spoken in a very large area, including most of Africa from southern Cameroon, eastward to Kenya, and southward to the southernmost tip of the continent. Now, when we talk about those Africans who were in Allendale County, South Carolina, at least 51,700 years ago, those were the Khoisan. The Khoisan come from southern Africa. They have the oldest DNA on the planet. They're also they're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa, and they went all around the world. The Khoisan, okay. Now, 12 Bantu languages are spoken by more than 5 million people, including the Rundi, Rwanda, the Shona, the Xhosa, and Zulu. Now, Swahili, which is Swahili or Kiswahili as it's correctly called, Swahili, which is spoken by 5 million people as a mother tongue and some 30 million as a second language, is a Bantu lingua franca, important in both commerce and literature, okay? So the Xhosa language, or isiXhosa, is the language that's spoken between King T'Challa and his son, King T'Chaka, the father, and his son T'Challa, who is Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther. The language that they're speaking is isiXhosa. The reason why that language is in the movie is because the actor who plays the father, his name is John Kanai. John Kanai is South African. That's the language he speaks. So he talks about how, I saw an interview that he did, and he talked about how he was on the set one day, and he was on the set one day, and he was speaking to T'Challa in the scene. They were speaking English. So he was like, well, wait a second. If these are African people, they need to speak an African language. So he talked to the director, Ryan Coogler, right? And he convinced him to incorporate this language into the film, okay? Yes, go ahead.
Is that the language that has, as part of its phonology, a click?
There are clicks in the language. Yeah, there are clicks in the language, yeah. And we know that the Khoisan spoke in clicks also, from Southern Africa, but there are clicks in isiXhosa.
What's
Yeah.
clicks?
Click, it's a click sound that they make. I can't really do it yet, but they're click sounds that's part of their language.
You have to look out for it because it's like it's in there.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you hear it,
It's fast. It's the way they pronounce it, but there are clicks in the language.
right.
Yes. Okay. All right. So that's dealing with some background information. So we see African culture, which relates to history. We see this all throughout the film. All right. Okay. Now, very quickly. So the film, I think, is fantastic. We see some storylines from the movie in the film. We see some variations in some of the storylines. We see some of the characters in it as well. Okay? So very quickly, the film, a lot of these Marvel movies are related to each other. And they're leading up to Avengers Infinity War, which comes out April 27, 2018. And all the Marvel superheroes that we've seen in the previous 18 Marvel movies, they're going to be in Avengers Infinity War. Characters from the Black Panther are going to be in there as well, because a lot of the film takes place in Wakanda. All right? So, the film Black Panther well, we first saw the Black Panther character in 2016 Captain America Civil War, okay? This film opens up about a week after that those occurrences took place. The film opens up with T'Challa going to basically Nigeria to let Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia, know that the king has been assassinated, okay, who's his father, all right? The assassination took place in Captain America Civil War. So this movie opens up about a week after that, all right? And you see, Nakia is a spy for the nation of Wakanda. She's on a mission basically to free Nigerian schoolgirls, okay? So then we get to see her martial arts skills, and she takes out these guys who kidnapped these schoolgirls, okay? So then he lets her know that the king has been assassinated, come back to Wakanda because they're about to have the ceremony for him to become the king, all right? So then we see the ceremony, we see the ritual combat as one M'Baku of the Jabari tribe who challenges the throne of Wakanda. Now, there are 18 different tribes that make up the nation of Wakanda. His was one of them, okay? There are 18 different tribes. And when you study, when you get into the comic book and things like this, you'll see this, and they deal with the history of it as well, okay? So we see the ritual combat. If you understand martial arts and the history of martial arts, you know that martial arts originates in Africa as well. The earliest forms of combat come out of Africa. And if you talk to Ahati Kalindi, who's from Detroit, he's known around the world. He's the master of African martial arts. He's also expert on entheogens, okay, and the hallucinogenic powers of the mushrooms, things like this. He talks about the African origins of martial arts, etc. Okay, but we see the combat take place between T'Challa and M'Baku. We see grappling, ground fighting, things like this. Okay, so where they fight at is called Warrior Falls. Warrior Falls, and we see this in the Black Panther comic book also. This is where the ritual combat takes place. Okay, so the only way that the ritual combat, which is traditional, the only way it can end is one person yields, which means they give up or tap out, or one person is killed. That's the only way the battle can, that's the only way it can end, all right? Okay, so he becomes the king of Wakanda. And then we're going to see these two characters, Ulysses Claw, who's one of the arch enemies of the Black Panther in the comic book. Ulysses Claw's from the comic book, as well as Eric Killmonger is from the comic book as well. Okay, so for Killmonger, they're going to change the storyline some for the movie, and I think they probably changed it so it resonates more with a largely African American audience. Okay, because the majority of the people who are going to see the film are in the U.S. All right, so if you understand the film, then you understand that most of the people who we see in the film are Wakandans. They're Africans, right? So in the comic book, Killmonger is 100% Wakandan. He's not half Wakandan and half African American. No, he's 100% Wakandan in the comic book. All right. So they changed the storyline where his father falls in love in the U.S. falls in love with an African American woman, and they have him. Okay. So his lineage is half African American, half Wakandan. All right. And he is the son of a prince as well. His father was a prince. His father in the movie, played by Sterling K. Brown, okay, the actor Sterling K. Brown, his father was the brother of King T'Chaka, okay, T'Chaka, who was the father of the Black Panther, T'Challa, okay. So what happens is his father gets killed by the king, who is his brother, T'Challa. They leave him behind in T'Chaka, I should say. They leave him behind in Oakland, California. Okay, the rest of the people in Wakanda don't know he exists. All right, he grows up with a lot of hatred. His father is killed, but before his father dies, you know, he learns about Wakanda. He learns he has an African name. he learns to speak the language, etc. Okay? So even though you have a lot of African Americans who identify with his character is not exactly African American. It's half. Because most of us don't speak an African language, don't know where we come from in Africa, don't know which nation we come from, okay? Don't know any of our relatives, things like this. That's not his lineage. His is different, okay? So what's going to take place is he's going to team up with Ulysses Claw. Now Ulysses Claw in the comic book was a descendant of a Nazi. It was either his grandfather or great-grandfather was a Nazi. And in the comic book, Claw forces Killmonger's father to help him steal vibranium from Wakanda, okay? The Panther thinks that Killmonger's father did it on his own, and they're banished from Wakanda. They end up in Harlem, New York, okay? He doesn't know that they were forced, all right? In the comic book, Killmonger is going to, he goes to MIT, gets a PhD from MIT. I've also seen one source that shows he has an MBA as well. He's highly intelligent. He's trained in martial arts, things like this. He's going to come back to Wakanda and contest the throne, okay? And he's going to end up fighting against T'Challa, all right, in the combat, in the comic book, all right? He's going to throw T'Challa off Warrior Falls, as we saw in the movie, okay? As we see in this scene here, in the combat. In the comic book, he throws him over Warrior Falls. T'Challa is going to be rescued and nursed back to health. In the comic book, he's going to come back and he's going to continue the fight with Killmonger, okay? And what's going to happen is there was a boy who was there during the combat. And this is a boy who Killmonger killed his father earlier. And this boy during the combat is going to end up pushing Killmonger over Warrior Falls, and Killmonger dies, okay? And then T'Challa takes the throne back, all right? So you have to understand some of the history of the Black Panther comic book to understand the film, all right? In the comic book, in the comic book, Killmonger is going to be brought back from the death as well, okay, if you follow the storyline in the comic book. So who knows what happens in Black Panther 2, because in the comic book, he comes back, he's brought back to life. After he's killed, he's brought back to life as well.
Well, they did it for Black Panther in the movie.
What do you mean? Well, he wasn't dead.
Yeah, it was kind of...
Well, that's what happened in the comic book, though. In the comic book, he's thrown over Warrior Falls during the combat. That's in the comic book. Okay, so that's following the storyline, okay, right from the comic book. This is why I explain to people, you have to understand the comic book some to understand the movie, because this stuff is being played out. You're seeing this play out in the movie, okay? And you see in the movie, we see Killmonger team up with Ulysses Claw. We see that in the comic book as well, okay? And Ulysses Claw has an armed cannon, okay, made out of vibranium, as we see in the film as well. There was a battle that took place and he lost his arm. He had it replaced with an armed cannon made out of vibranium. Now vibranium is the hardest, toughest metal in the world in the film. And it also fuels their technology. So Wakanda in the movie is the most technologically advanced country in the world, okay? Part of that has to do with vibranium. The other part has to do with the fact that their history was never interrupted by slavery and colonialism. This is an African nation that was never conquered by Europeans, was never enslaved. It wasn't conquered by Arabs either. Because the Arabs were enslaving Africans almost 1,000 years before Europeans were enslaving Africans in East Africa. Okay?
So is that real?
It's well real.
What you just said?
The real life parallel.
Yeah, that's a real parallel. Yeah, the Ethiopia would be the parallel. Ethiopia was never conquered by Europeans. The Italians, we see the Battle of Adwa of 1896, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll see the Battle of Adwa of 1896, where Emperor Menelik II defeats the Italians. And we just celebrated the 122nd anniversary of the Battle of Adwa. That was March 1st. 122nd anniversary was March 1st of this year, 2018. And we see the Italians come back in 1935, okay, during the World War II era period of time, 1935 with Mussolini, okay, and they're going to be there from 35 to 41, and the Ethiopians are going to defeat the Italians again, okay, but Ethiopia was not colonized by Europeans, they were not enslaved, they were not conquered by Europeans, so that would be the equivalent. But when we look at Wakanda, the reason why they're so technologically advanced, one, because of the vibranium, and that's the only place in the world you can get vibranium in the film, in the story. Two, their history was not interrupted by colonialism and slavery, all right? So that's very important to understand that. Okay, and this is Lupita Nyong'o, the character of Nakia, all right? So we're going to see them unite there we see the scene in the theater, not theater, the museum. We see the museum scene, and they're trying to get an artifact that's from Wakanda made out of vibranium. And he wants to take the throne. He wants to contest for the throne of Wakanda, okay? We're going to see the character of Shuri, okay, played by Letitia Wright. Shuri is the younger sister of T'Challa. And she's the one who makes a lot of this technology. She's an engineer. She has a lab, she makes a lot of this technology. She makes an enhancement to his suit, where his suit spreads over his body from a necklace, okay? So here you have this African woman who's a master of all this technology. She's an engineer, okay?
Hey, Mike, tell them the good part.
What?
She's 16.
Yeah, she's 16. Yes, his younger sister. Yeah, she's a teenager. Okay, so that's some background information from the film. The film is very deep when you understand these storylines. I'm just giving you a synopsis of it, okay? All right, so you're going to have them fighting, and you're going to have them fighting to try to keep this technology from being taken out of Wakanda, being used, really, because what Killmonger wants to do is not just, he ain't just trying to liberate oppressed people, African people. He wants to use the technology to rule the world like Europeans. If you listen to what he says and understand what he's talking about, okay? All right, so you have this fighting suit. Okay, so let's continue. Now, when we look at some different things, you see themes of spirituality, you see themes of African culture, etc., all throughout the film. All right, so one is the name of the deity that watches over Wakanda is Bast or Bastet. Well, that comes straight out of ancient Egypt. That comes straight out of ancient Kemet, Bastet, okay? So Bastet was an ancient Egyptian goddess, or a Neter, okay? Because we ain't use the term god or goddess. It would be Neter, okay? Neter for singular, Neteru for plural. And it was Bastet or Bast was worshipped in the form of a lioness and later a cat. So it was a cat head on a lion's head on a female body. Okay, she was a Neter of warfare in Lower Egypt or Lower Kemet, because Egypt is an Arabic word of Greek derivation. It's not one of the original names we use. Kemet would be one of the original names, meaning the land of the blacks. You may also see Ta Mary, meaning the beloved land. She was worshipped as early as the second dynasty, around 2890 BCE. Now, BCE means before the Common Era, which is the equivalent to BC, before Christ, okay? So, when you have the Neter, or Neteru for plural, these are different manifestations of the one supreme force, okay? They did not, people say, oh, they believed in many gods, as well a lot of Europeans say. No, in all these different African spiritual systems, they had one supreme force, and they had different manifestations of this one supreme force, which are deities. We see how the deities from ancient Kemet influenced the deities amongst the Greeks, influenced the deities amongst the Romans, etc. Okay? Here's an example. How many people read Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder? Okay. How many people know who Tony Browder is? Okay, Browder's one of our bad, he's a bad scholar. He's an archaeologist, author, historian. I've interviewed Browder 6 times, okay? Page 168 of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, Volume 1, Exposing the Myths. This is page 168. He talks about the influence of the ancient Egyptian deities and how they influenced the Greeks and the Romans, okay? So, this is Deheuti, okay, coming from ancient Kemet. This is Hermes from the Greeks, and this is Mercury from the Romans. So he says Deheuti, the nectar of science, writing, measurement, divine articulation of speech, and medicine, holds in his hand two staffs with entwined snakes. These two staffs here. Okay, one snake or one staff represented Upper Kemet, the other staff represented Lower Kemet. Okay, he said Deheuti was referred to as Thoth by the Greeks. T-H-O-T-H. Write that down. T-H-O-T-H. Thoth by the Greeks. Right. Number two, Hermes was the Greek equivalent to Deheuti. Okay, the Greeks invade Kemet in 332 BC with Alexander the Great, or who we call Alexander the Greek, because there's nothing great about him. All right, and the Greeks are going to learn from the ancient Egyptians, from the ancient Kemites. He is shown carrying a staff which has two entwined snakes. Okay, this is the staff of Hermes. It was called the staff of Hermes. In Greek mythology, he was associated with wisdom and the Hermetic sciences. The Hermetic sciences are the foundation for Freemasonry. Okay, the books are Hermes. The 42 books are Hermes. They're the foundation of Freemasonry. Okay, but those teachings and knowledge come from ancient Kemet, come from ancient Egypt. Okay, Hermetic sciences were used Okay, so Greek mythology, he was associated with wisdom, and the Hermetic sciences were named in his honor. So 3, we have Mercury, okay? Now Mercury was Roman, all right? Even though it says it's Greek, Mercury was Roman. Mercury is the Roman version of Hermes, because the Romans are going to conquer around 45, 46 BC, ancient Kemet. They're going to learn from the Greeks, they learn from the ancient Egyptians, okay? So the Romans are going to be influenced by the Greeks. Mercury is the Greek version of Hermes and Deheuti, who the Greeks call Thoth also, and is similar in all aspects. So the different attributes, because all these deities have different attributes as well. Okay, the staff of Mercury the staff that Mercury carries is called the caduceus. The caduceus, right? And has been adopted as the universal symbol of medicine. So when you see the American Medical Association, when you see the American Dental Association, and you see a staff with a snake wrapped around it, you see this caduceus with the snake wrapped around the staff and the wings. This comes straight out of ancient Kemet. This comes straight out of ancient Egypt. This is where this stuff comes from, okay? So we see how the Africans influenced the Greeks, and then how that influenced the Romans, but it's coming from us, all right? Deheuti, Thoth, okay, now this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Okay, just because you've never heard it before does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. Deheuti, who the Greeks also call Thoth, delivers the Annunciation to the Virgin or Set, who the Greeks call Isis. All right? So if we look at this is page 168 of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. See the culture, the spirituality, all this that you see in the film relates to history. Okay? So let's look at this. This is page 95 of page 95 of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Brown. He said the story of Osar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus, is the first story in the recorded history of man of a holy royal family, or the Trinity, the Immaculate Conception, Virgin Birth, and Resurrection. Evidence of this Trinity is known to have existed in ancient Nubia, which is actually Ta-Nehesi, because Nubia is a Greek word, ancient Nubia as late as 3300 BCE. Okay? Now when they say as late as 3300 BCE, that means it existed before that. They mean we have a date as late as 3300 BC, but we know it exists before that. Carved on the walls of the temple of Luxor around 1380 BC are the scenes which depict the following. Now this is straight. Now you can see these scenes when you look at books dealing with ancient Kemet. You can see these scenes depicting these stories told over and over and over again. This goes back to at least 3300 BC in ancient Kemet. Okay, these scenes here, the Annunciation, the Immaculate Conception, the Virgin Birth, the Adoration. These are very, very old stories told over and over and over again, adapted to other people's cultures, taken around the world. Okay, so this scene down here, one, the Annunciation, the nectar Dehuti is shown announcing to the Virgin Auset the coming birth of their son Heru. Okay, now in the Christian tradition, it was Gabriel, the messenger angel, that delivers the Annunciation to the Virgin Mary. Mercury was known as a messenger. Gabriel is doing what Dehuti did in the mythology going back at least 3300 BC, just saying. All right, number one, the nectar Dehuti is shown announcing to the Virgin Auset the coming birth of their son Heru. Now, in your zodiac, one of your zodiac signs, so the 12 signs of the zodiac, right? Okay, and one of your zodiac signs is called Virgo, right? Y'all all right? Okay, one is called Virgo, and it's a constellation in the sky, right? In ancient times, that constellation was of Auset, Isis. But the word Virgo is Latin for virgin. That's what the word Virgo means. It means virgin. It's Latin, which is why that constellation used to be of Auset, because in the mythology, Auset was the virgin as well. Two, the Immaculate Conception, the nectar Neph, who represents the Holy Ghost. This is where this stuff comes from. And in the movie, you got Bastet, which comes straight out of ancient Kemet, out of ancient Egypt, represented in the movie. Okay? But people don't know that this stuff is there, and they don't know where it comes from. All right? The Immaculate Conception, the nectar Neph, who represents the Holy Ghost, and the nectar Heru, also who the Greeks call Hathor, are shown symbolically impregnating Auset by holding the Ankh, which is the African symbol of life. And this is what we see right here. They're holding Ankhs to her, to her nostrils, okay, of the Virgin Mother to be. This is symbolically impregnating her, okay? It's an Immaculate Conception. Three, the Virgin Birth. So this is up here. She's sitting on the birthing stool, because we had enough sense to know that it made more sense for the woman to sit on the birthing stool and let gravity take its course, as opposed to lay on your back trying to push the baby out. We knew better than that. All right? Three, the Virgin Birth. Auset is shown sitting on the birthing stool, and the new child is attended by the midwives. Okay? Four, the Adoration. The newborn Heru, this is what this is down here, the Adoration, and up here. The newborn Heru is portrayed receiving gifts from the three kings, or the Magi, while being adored by a host of gods and men, or deities and men. Okay? So this is where this comes from. All right? So we see how, we see Thoth, right? We see the word Thoth, right? Well, when you look at the Black Panther comic book, right? Wakandan religion and its tribes. The religion of the Wakandan people first developed during the pilgrimage to the land, Wakanda. In their conflict with the originators, the gods of Wakanda formed from the heroes of humans within the tribe, or they were like deified ancestors, okay? Ascending to the status of a god or a deity. These heroes became known as the Orisha. Now, who's heard the term Orisha? The Orisha comes straight out of the Yoruba tradition, out of Nigeria. And the Orisha are the names of the deities in the Yoruba tradition of Ifa, the Yoruba spiritual system of Ifa. But when you study the history of the Yoruba come from ancient Kemet, they come from ancient Egypt. Just like the Dogon of Mali and Burkina Faso. The Dogon come from ancient Egypt. They come from ancient Kemet. Okay? So ascending to the status of a god or a deity, these heroes became the Orisha or Orisha. Taking the names Koku, Thoth, that we just talked about. Thoth. This is in the Black Panther comic book. Bast or Bastet, Majaji, Patan. Patan comes straight out of ancient Kemet. That's one of the early deities. Patan, one of the first ones. And the Ami. The Orishas' origins date back to the ancient Egyptian beings known as the Ennead. This is straight out of the comic book. The Ennead. What are the Ennead? Who's heard the term the Ennead? Ennead means group of 9 in Greek. And the Ennead refers to the first to a group of the first 9 deities in ancient Kemet, also known as the Paschet. The 9 Neteru for plural were Atom, which reference the sun, Shu, which reference air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb, earth, Nut, sky, Asar, who the Greeks called Osiris, Aset, who the Greeks called Isis, Set, who was the brother of Asar, and Nephthys. Okay? If you read Ancient Egypt by Lorna Oakes and Lucia Garland, page 274 to 277, they have a glossary of the different Neteru that attributes things like this. Also, Nile Valley contributions to civilization. And Browder has a glossary in the back of the book. All this stuff is dealing with ancient Kemet. All this stuff is dealing with African history. Okay? Now, we take this. Now, these are straight out of the comic book. These deities. But people read it, this comes straight out of the Black Panther comic book. People see this and don't know where this stuff comes from. This comes from African history and culture. Okay? Now, in addition to the development of these gods and deities, the people of Wakanda became segmented into various cults that worship various animal gods of the area. Now, they didn't think, so when Europeans write some of this stuff, right, they don't really understand the African cosmology and African interpretation. So Africans did not think that a panther was God. But they, let me back up. Okay, so what happens is in African cosmology, African people understand that everything comes from the creator, that one creative source. Maybe Olodumare, maybe Amun-Ra, whatever. And they understand that the gifts that the animals have come from the creator. So they understand, so they honor and respect the gifts that the animal has because they understand it comes from that one creative principle. And so they will name different manifestations of that one creative principle. So if we look at the earth, that comes from the creator, and the earth gives life to everything. If we look at the air, oxygen, that comes from the creator. Basically, all living things need something. Most likely need air, oxygen to breathe. Okay? If we look at the sky, we know that water comes from the sky, and basically all living things in general need water to live. Okay? So they understand that all this comes from that one creative principle, one creative source. All right? What's going to take place is that when we look at what's collectively called the Neteru, right? We're going to see that when we look at ancient Kemet, we'll see that different cities will have a deity that they say watches over them. Okay? Just as in Wakanda, each one of the different tribes had a deity they said watched over them. And amongst the Panther cult, it was the Black Panther, Bastet. All right? Now, here's what happens. I told you that the Greeks influenced, the ancient Kemites and the Africans influenced the Greeks influenced the Romans, right? So what takes place is, when you study the origins of Christianity, Christianity is going to take fragments from the periphery of African spiritual systems. So the Neteru in Christianity are going to be replaced by what? The saints. Because if you understand the saints, you have what are known as patron saints. P-A-T-R-O-N. And the patron saints watch over groups of people and countries. Okay? So, St. Nicholas, who the character of Santa Claus is patterned after, St. Nicholas was a patron saint to Russia. St. Nicholas was a patron saint to children, pawnbrokers, money lenders, things like this. And this was a patron saint said to watch over these groups of people. St. Patrick is a patron saint to Ireland. Okay? He died on March 17, 462 AD. This is why his feast day is March 17th. That's why they celebrate St. Patrick's Day. There's some other stuff. Don't make any sense why they celebrate St. Patrick's Day. He's a mass murderer as well, but that's a whole nother lecture. But that he watches over Ireland. Saint Maurice, who was a Moor. Saint Maurice was a patron saint to Germany. Okay? When you study the patron saints, they have attributes, and they're said to watch over groups of people. Just like the deities in ancient Kemet do the same thing. If you look at other different African spiritual systems, you'll see that a lot of these various cities, historically, they say there's a orisha or a deity or what have you that watches over a particular city, a particular group of people, etc. So the Neteru in Christianity are going to be replaced by the saints. And if you actually study history, you know that a lot of the early saints were Africans as well. A lot of the early saints were Africans. Okay, so this stuff is deep. How you doing, sister? So all this is in the movie and in the Black Panther comic books. And it all relates to African history and culture. All right, so let's continue here. All right, now you hear the term Afrofuturism, and the movie deals with Afrofuturism. So what is Afrofuturism? All right, now the term Afrofuturism was coined by cultural critic Mark Derry in his 1994 essay Black to the Future, and it refers to an aesthetic that infuses science fiction and fantasy with cultures of the African diaspora. Now the diaspora deals with the forced spreading out of African people throughout the world because of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, but once again, as we saw earlier with Dr. David Imhotep and the first Americans were Africans documented evidence, African people were already all throughout the world, but you're going to have a forced spreading out because of the transatlantic slave trade. So one of the things we have to understand is a chronology of history as well. Just because African people were already here in this land, we call the United States of America, okay, does not mean the transatlantic slave trade did not happen. You're going to have people coming into different areas, people migrating at different periods of time for different reasons, okay? All right. So, the term Afrofuturism coined by cultural critic Mark Derry in his 1994 essay, Black to the Future, refers to an aesthetic that infuses science fiction and fantasy with cultures of the African diaspora. It shakes up our preconceived notions of history and race by envisioning an often utopic future shaped by black technological innovation. So if you see, when you look at Wakanda, it's the most technologically advanced country in the world, all right? Elements of Afrofuturism predate the term itself, going as far back as the 1950s, appearing everywhere, from visual art to novels from authors like Octavia Butler, to comic books, to music by the likes of George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars, and the jazz music, the Mothership, dealing with the Doggone.
It's in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, the Mothership, George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars, and the jazz musician Sun Ra. We know Ra referenced the deity, one the Neter from ancient Kemet, dealing with the sun. Okay, Ra, the sun at its highest point, right at the meridian.
Source of all life on earth.
Yeah, Ra. Every living thing needs the sun. And Ra represents the sun at its highest point, right? The meridian. Okay, the resurgence of Afrofuturism goes beyond Black Panther to Janelle Monáe, Jay-Z, and more. Okay, so there's an article from Washington Post, February 17, 2018. What is Afrofuturism? Okay, so you can check that out as well. This movie, all this stuff is in the film. This stuff is deep. All right, now, here we have, this is from Washington Post also, okay? Black Panther is more than a trip to the movies, it's a celebration of black excellence. And what we're gonna do also, we'll take a donation, because we did this for free, but I gotta pay for this venue. So if you wanna donate as well, we'll do that while I keep going. All right, 5, 10, 15, whatever you wanna do. And then when we take a break, we'll take a break probably in about 20 minutes or so. We take a break. We have my DVDs over here also. I have this presentation on DVD. What I'm going to do, I have a presentation I recorded last Thursday. So you get that, and then I'm going to mail you this presentation I'm doing today. Mail it to you early this coming week, okay? All right, go ahead. Franklin. It's Franklin.
Fernando.
Fernando, go ahead.
Now, Tahuti, which is thought,
Uh-huh.
I thought his name was Tahuti.
You see it pronounced Tahuti or Tahuti.
Okay.
Yeah, you see,
Now,
you see both. Yeah.
Okay. Now, kind of explain to me what a nectar.
Neter. Neter is a personification of the forces of nature. And it's believed that the word nature comes from the word neter.
Okay.
Neter is a personification of the forces of nature. So that deals with their pantheon, the neter. Just like the Orishas, were amongst the Yoruba, in Ifa, in Nigeria, amongst the Yoruba. That's the same thing, the neter.
So the nectar
Or the neteru for plural, neter for singular. Go ahead.
So they give a name for a nectar, but it means something related to nature.
It's a personification of nature.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a personification of nature.
A deity is...
Same thing. Deity is another. Deity is another term. The
Okay.
deity. When Europeans talk about deities, they talk about quote unquote gods with a little g. Okay. See, what happens is Europeans totally misunderstood this stuff. So they said They said these people believe in many gods. No, they saw different manifestations of that one supreme force, but they understood that there was one supreme force also. So you got to understand, when Europeans learned from the ancient Kemites, they learned less than 10% of what they knew. Right. And a lot of that stuff they got wrong. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then they said, oh, they believe in many gods, right? But then if you study Christianity, just may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness, you got 9 different types of angels. You got archangels, warrior angels, messenger angels. Michael is a warrior angel. Michael means he who was like God. Gabriel is a messenger angel. Then you got the saints. And as I said, you have patron saints. The saints watch over different groups of people. Okay? They replace the Neteru with the saints. But people don't understand that correlation. Because a lot of, because see, Professor Kaba, and I talked to Professor Kaba commented yesterday, Booker T. Coleman. And he's one of my teachers. We were talking about the films, things in it. So I told him I'm doing another presentation. And when you listen to his lectures, he talks about how to understand the existence of something, you first must understand the pre-existence of existence. Okay? So a lot of times people think the way things are today is the way they always were. But they don't understand what influenced the way things are today. So you have to understand the pre-existence of existence. Okay? All right, now. So this is about a 4-minute video. This is from the Washington Post. And this dealt with the enthusiasm surrounding the premiere of the film Black Panther. And it talks about how Black Panther is more than a trip to the movies, it's a celebration of black excellence, okay? And you see them here doing the Black Panther, the Wakanda salute. We'll talk about that as well, okay? Let's take a look at this. I have let me see. I'm sure I have speakers on.
Black Panther is basically a Black High Society event, and everybody should get into it.
I have my tailor sew about 7 outfits, just so I can have a selection of stuff to wear.
Had my ticket for going on 3 or 4 weeks now.
Literally the best thing that is probably going to come out.
It's a time of celebration. It's a time to be able to fully express that joy that you feel.
I am a costumer, I'm a creator, and the first thing that I said is, I'm gonna make something. I have to make something. It does allow you to kind of dig deeper into your cultural roots and what there is to love about being a Black American, or, being me, a first-generation Guyanese American.
I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. I grew up on the continent. So to see an Afrofuturist story or character about this king that's ruling a country that's never been colonized, and to be able to see that and see almost a thing of what could have been, or what can we strive to now, It's something that it hits me on a very personal level.
Black Panther has been one of my favorite superheroes. He's definitely the richest superhero that I know of. Just him as a character, like, he wears a suit that's indestructible. I mean, who can beat that?
My first connection to superhero stories were through animation, the X-Men cartoons, the Batman animated series, the Transformers, Ninja Turtles. That was my first foray into learning about American culture. But seeing that there were not a lot of either Nigerian or African or even African American characters, at that point I didn't know it, but it had an effect on me that made me feel like this concept of being a superhero was meant for a specific type of person.
We do have Storm, we have Blade, we have Misty Knight, but they were created in a time, and even Black Panther was created in a time where they were being written by white men. And unfortunately for us, they were also kind of side characters.
I was under heavy pressure behind the fandom because I knew that there were certain fan favorites like Fedora, the Black Panther costume, Killmonger, would be something that people were really on the edge of their seats to see what we were going to do with them.
Yeah.
So the imagery for us was really important to project the strength of women. And so those images, I feel, have already brought so much positive energy to families, to children. I've seen the cosplayers making them up, and it's wonderful to see that this is something that they've been waiting for, and that we're representing it in a historic way.
Children love superheroes, Iron Man. They love to see people who are extraordinary and have these above normal talents. So now to have a African American, a black superhero, like now they have someone to look up to.
I believe Black Panther had the greatest pre-sale of any superhero movie, and that's with a relatively unknown black lead, a predominantly black female cast. People are getting excited.
It's going to do a lot of good. People of color that want to write, want to produce, want to direct, want to act, want to do different things behind the camera. It's going to kind of like open the floodgates for that. Not just in the characters themselves being diverse, but the people who are actually creating, directing, writing these characters being of diverse cultures and backgrounds as well.
We're starting to progress, and we're starting to make it known that we need to see ourselves written by ourselves, and we need to be connected to a character not only because they're the same skin color as us, but also because they act like us and they think like us, they dress like us. So I think in that vein, that's where Black Panther is really hitting the nail right on the head.
All right. So that was Ruth Carter you saw there with the glasses. She's the costume designer. All right, we're gonna talk about her. That's a bad sister. Okay. She also was the costume designer for the movie Malcolm X as well. That's Ruth Carter. Okay. So we see the Wakanda salute, right? Like this, right over left. It's not left over right. It's right over left. There's a difference. Okay. We see athletes. African American athletes are doing the Wakanda salute. This is an article from Slate.com from March 6, 2018. Black athletes have started celebrating their victories with the Wakanda Forever salute from Black Panther. So this is tennis star Sashia Victory, and she reacts after defeating Garbine Margaruza at the BNP Paribas Open on Friday, March 6, 2018. That's when this picture is from. But this is an article from Slate.com from March of 2018. Okay. Here's some others. You have a soccer player, another tennis player. AtlantaBlackStar.com had this article from March 13, 2018. Wakanda Forever greeting becoming normal celebration sign for black athletes. Okay. So Sashia. So in the article here from Slate.com, it said, as Marvel's Black Panther continues its benevolent reign over the box office, it was the #1 movie for 5 weeks straight in the U.S. The film's cultural impact is starting to make itself known. The latest sign comes from the world of athletics, Well, black athletes have started celebrating their victories with the Wakanda Forever salute featured in the film. The movie version can be seen in the second shot from this ad. Here's the trailer.
We'll no longer watch from the shadows.
Black Panther is a movie for this generation.
Show that movie out.
Yeah.
Experience the phenomenon.
I will be there beside you as we lie. Glory.
Black Panther, rated PG-13, now playing.
All right. So in this article here, it said the first athletes to adopt the signal, the Wakanda salute, seem to have been Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba of Manchester United, soccer players, who were doing the Wakanda salute as far back as a match against Chelsea on February 25th, 2018. The salute crossed into the tennis world this week at the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells, California. On Thursday, French player Gael Monfils commemorated his victory over Matthew Ebden with the salute. The next day, American player Sachia Vickery, ranked number 100 in the world, came from behind to win a stunning upset Friday over third-ranked Garbine Muguruza of Spain. Vickery marked the occasion with a familiar gesture, okay? And she was doing this here, okay, as we see here, okay? But they interviewed her about it, right? And they said, asked in an interview with the WTA Insight, I think that's the World Tennis Association, about the salute, Vickery confirmed it was from Black Panther. She said that was definitely Wakanda Forever. I'm so obsessed with the movie. It's taken over my life. I have seen it 4 times already. Literally, I'm obsessed. I have watched it twice here. I may just keep watching it because it's been working out so well for me. She was ranked 100. She beat the third-ranked tennis player in the world. Okay, but the reason why it's right over left and not left over right is because it comes straight out of ancient Kemet. It comes from the Subiti. It comes from the pharaohs. It comes straight out of ancient Kemet. All these pictures is right over left. Okay, here you see one statue with the arm, but usually within the Subiti or the pharaohs, because pharaoh is an Asian term. That's not what we call them. The Subiti would be the correct term. You see them right over left. Number one is usually, and the statue is usually representing someone who is deceased. 1.
Right.
2 is usually royalty. Okay, usually royalty. And within the Subitis or the pharaohs, they had the crook and the flail. Okay, the crook and the flail is symbolic. The crook was a rod with a hook on it. That's used by sheep herders. Those are used by those that tend to livestock, and that's a rod used to keep the livestock in line as they're moving. Okay, the flail is like a rod with tassels on it. That's used to keep them going forward. Okay, and it's symbolic because then the Subiti or the pharaoh was a representation of of striving to live your life like this example. Okay, this was an example of, this was like the highest example of the Subiti wasn't perfect, but it was like the highest example on earth of like someone who was perfect. So this was somebody that they would strive to live their life like, okay? And this is symbolic, the crook and the flail. You see this in a lot of statues and a lot of books, things like this coming in symbolism, coming out of ancient Kemet, coming out of ancient Egypt, okay? And you'll see this in different depictions than with Africa as well. And you see in all of the ones I've seen from the film Black Panther, it's always right over left also, okay? And it's known as the Wakanda salute, okay? So this has an African origin, comes straight out of ancient Kemet.
That's not Kemetic.
Which one?
Upper right.
Oh no, that's not Kemetic. It's in other cultures also.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's in other cultures as well. Yeah. No, that's not ancient Kemet, but it's in other cultures. Okay. Yes.
Is that the ark right there?
Yeah, that's an ark. Yeah, the African symbol of life. Yeah, that's an ark.
When it appears in other cultures, would that suggest an African influence?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say absolutely. There's an African influence, yeah. I mean, we know like the first dynasties in China were African dynasties.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I was surprised how they announced it's been, what, 3 weeks going into the 4th week, that the Black Panther movie made over $1 billion.
Worldwide, yeah.
Worldwide.
Yeah, so you can go to boxofficemojo.com, boxofficemojo.com to see the box office ticket sales, the box office ticket receipts. They rank the movies each week by sales. They have information there. So when you hear me on the radio and I'm talking about the ticket sales, that's coming from boxofficemojo.com. That's an industry. That's a site that's referenced in the industry. Okay. All right, but we see this comes straight out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. We see Bastet comes straight out of ancient Kemet. This is African influences all throughout the film that relate to history also, okay? All right, so this is what we'll do. Okay, we'll take, let me see. I got about another, I got about another 30 minutes, I think, in this. 30 to 45 minutes. I got another something like that. Okay. Y'all want to take a break? Doesn't matter. Okay.
Do you need to take a break?
No, I don't need to take a break. Okay. We'll go because I got about another 30, 45 minutes here. Yes.
Where can I find like Black Panthers t-shirts and stuff?
I got this from Khalil. You know the vendor Khalil, he sells the jewelry.
Yeah.
Khalil, I have 3 Black Panther t-shirts, all bought from African American vendors.
Yeah. Where would they be though?
Khalil, Eastern Market, Shed 4, Eastern Market, because that's where I got it from. So he had the sister, my aunt, over at his table. Okay, yeah, that's where I got this from. I got this a couple weekends ago. But I have 2 other Black Panther. I have 2 other Black Panthers. So I got this from Khalil. I have 2 other Black Panther t-shirts at home also.
Shed 4?
Shed 4, yeah, that's where they were. A couple of Saturdays when I was over there. I think that's where they probably normally are.
So,
yeah, but that's where
Stan Lee and them, they had to do that research. You said all this was in the comic book.
Yeah, it's going to evolve over time. You're going to have different writers of the comic book. It's going to evolve over time. Yeah. So the Black Panther goes back 52 years. You have Ta-Nehisi Coates that writes for him. You have Reginald Hudlin. You're going to have different writers for it, but this evolves over time. Yes. But even to come up with the term, even to come up with the name Wakanda, that they didn't make that up. That's a Native American term. They came, so they had to have some type of influence. Yes.
I was talking to a friend, and I mistakenly made the assumption that these white people came up with these ideas and notions that resonate so well with African people. Mm-hmm. And his response to me was, you don't know who put that idea in their minds.
Right. Right.
And so I had to leave with that. But back to the salute. Mm-hmm. We already had a salute. Mm-hmm. Do you think
the Black Power salute?
Yeah. Do you think it'll be replaced or just added to?
Well, I don't know if the Black Power salute is replaced.
So it'll just be added to it?
Added to it, yeah. Okay. Added to it, yeah. Because that's where dapping comes from.
Right.
Because the Black Power salute was banned in the military during the Vietnam War. So the dap, when brothers are doing all this stuff out there, the dap was created by black servicemen during Vietnam because the Black Power salute was banned. And DAP is an acronym which means dignity and power. Okay, so you had black servicemen in Vietnam who were sent to the stockade because they did the Black Power salute. And
that's this.
The Black Power salute, and you had white servicemen who felt threatened by that. Wow. Okay, so when you there's a whole project which commemorates the DAP and looks at the history book. Blackden.com has an article dealing with the origins of the DAP. And it goes back to the Vietnam era. It goes back to black servicemen in Vietnam, in the military, created that. And it stands for dignity and power. And they would do that. It was a way of them bonding and saying, I'm going to look out for you, you're going to look out for me. Because there were also cases of black servicemen in battle being killed by white servicemen on their same side, called friendly fire. Right? So there was all this stuff going on. Yes.
What is the DAP?
Well, the DAP, they have different handshakes. The elaborate handshakes and doing like this and all that. There's different handshakes. It's called DAP.
And they
Yeah.
slide and shake.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Michael, before you go on,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Go
Can
ahead.
you tell me again where did the word Wakanda come from?
Okay, Wakanda is a Native American term. It's a Native American language. It's like the Sioux Indian language, the Omaha Ponca language. It means possesses secret powers. It also can refer to God in different Native American languages, like amongst the Osage. But it's also a Bantu word, because I talked to a brother who's from the Congo. It's a Bantu word, and Bantu is is a group of African languages. And it's related. I don't know the exact meaning in the Bantu languages. I wouldn't be surprised if it means the same thing. But it's related. The word is also related to Rwanda, Buganda, and Uganda. It's related to those as well. Okay. When you look at the geographical location in the film of Wakanda, it's near Rwanda in the film. It's moved throughout the past 52 years, but it's usually in East Central Africa, somewhere around Kenya, Tanzania, things like that. In the film, they have it near Rwanda. Okay? All right, let's continue. Okay, so because there's so much enthusiasm around the film, right? You had something that called the Black Panther Challenge, created online on GoFundMe by Frederick Joseph. This was a social media campaign or crowdfunding campaign to raise money to buy tickets to send children, especially African American children, to see this film. Okay, so hashtag Black Panther Challenge raises more than $300,000 to send 23 kids to the theaters. Everybody's going to see Black Panther. Frederick Joseph and his now famous hashtag Black Panther Challenge through GoFundMe has seen to it. The fundraising site has confirmed that some 300 campaigns on the site have collectively raised more than $300,000 combined, which will be enough to send about 23,000 children to see Black Panther in movie theaters this month. Donations have come from all 50 states plus 30 countries around the world. And Frederick Joseph is still pushing for more to be done, because when we say everybody, we mean everybody. He said, all children deserve to believe they can save the world, go on exciting adventures, or accomplish the impossible. I'm grateful that all of you have answered the call and are taking action to help more kids watch their heroes on the big screen. He went on to say, let's keep pushing forward. If you are a teacher, buy tickets for your entire classroom. If you're a coach, take your team. If you are a community leader, do some organizing and get the kids and parents in your community to the theater. So theroot.com had an article February 9, 2018 about this. Hashtag Black Panther Challenge raises more than $300,000 to send 23,000 kids to theaters. Okay, and I know also Mary Copey, Little Miss Flint, she raised money to send a couple hundred children in Flint to go see the film also. Okay, film Black Panther as well. All right. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so you also have a hashtag Wakanda the Vote voter registration initiative that's been spurred from this. Okay, so you see, when I was on the radio Thursday on Spud's show, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, you have people, and I've heard people before say, oh, this is a fictitious movie, oh, it's not going to do anything, well, we don't need a fictitious movie, etc. Okay? So one of the questions I would ask them is, what impact did the film, what impact did the TV show A Different World have on African Americans? Because during the period of time the show A Different World was on the air, enrollment at HBCUs tripled. Okay? Enrollment at HBCUs tripled. What impact did the fictitious movie The Birth of a Nation have on America when it debuted February 8, 1915? If you understand history, you know the movie The Birth of a Nation caused race riots in the streets. If you understand history, you know this fictitious movie, The Birth of a Nation, is credited with rejuvenating the Ku Klux Klan. Because the Klan had basically died out by 1915, created December 24, 1865, right after the 13th Amendment was ratified and adopted. And the movie, The Birth of a Nation, showed the Ku Klux Klan as the heroes of the film. So this movie rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan. It's a fictitious movie. So when people say things like that, they don't understand the power of image and the power of media. I've been studying media for 26 years. They don't understand that, and they don't understand history. Okay? And how the two intersect. Okay, so Blavity.com, as well as abcnews.go.com, ABC News official website, they talked about hashtag Wakanda the vote. Okay, and they talked about how there were 3 African American women who put together the Electoral Justice Project. The Electoral Justice Project. They organized this in October 2017. Their names are Kayla Reed, Jessica Bird, and Rokia Lumumba. Rokia Lumumba is the daughter of Chokwe Lumumba, who was the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, and one of the founders of the Republic of New Africa. Okay, and this project is this is a project by the Movement for Black Lives that aims to fight for and advance the rights of Black Americans. But they talk about how they wanted to meet African Americans where they were, and they went to the movie theaters to register people, especially African Americans, to vote, and talk about the need for voting and how politics is tied to voting and how that impacts every aspect of our life. So this article is from early February, before the movie, right before the movie premiered, and they said this weekend we wanted to meet our people in Wakanda. We know that for some it's a superhero world, but we know that the world we deserve is still waiting to be built. So in the clip we showed earlier from the Washington Post, they talked about how even though this is a fictitious movie, it can show us something that we aspire to be or aspire to create. Art is very powerful. Imagery is very powerful, okay? And they said, she said, and we want to build it. She said, we know that for some it's a superhero world, but we know that the world we deserve is still waiting to be built, and we want to build it. So one of the reasons why many of our people don't fight back is because many of them don't think they are worth fighting for. Many of them don't think they are worth having more than what they have. Or they think that people that look like them are not worth fighting for. Okay? All right, so she said that, it goes on to say, this upcoming spring and November 2018 midterm elections are an important step in building that new world, and we want to take every opportunity to engage our communities in the conversation of electoral justice. We will be registering people to vote at movie theaters across the country so that we can hashtag Wakanda the vote at the ballot box. So you see African people in control of their economy and politics in the movie. Okay? Well, if we're the majority of the population in the city, we should do the same thing. Okay? So this is taking the imagery that you see in the movie and saying, how can we create this? How can we manifest this in real life? All right, so that's hashtag Wakanda the vote. Check out the article from Blavity.com, Blavity, Blavity.com, exclusive. These black women launched hashtag Wakanda the vote to register voters at Black Panther screenings everywhere. And they said that they were going to do the same thing for the premiere of A Wrinkle in Time also. They talked about that as well, okay? All right, that's from Blavity.com. There was also an article from abcnews.com. ABC News had a good article about that as well. All right, now, we see an impact on African-American-owned businesses also. So, you know, you saw memes on Facebook, people saying, oh, the movie made hundreds of millions of dollars, the black community didn't get anything. No, that's not true. You just didn't get anything, okay? That's not true. First of all, a lot of the film was filmed at Tyler Perry's new stages at his studio. So AtlantaJournal.com, AJC.com had an article, Black Panther was the first movie filmed at Tyler Perry's studio's new stages. Okay, I don't think he let them set up for free. They had to pay him. All right? The filmmaker recently took to social media this week to reveal the little-known fact that parts of the blockbuster was shot at one of the new stages at his studio located in the Peach City. In fact, he said the Marvel flick was the first to be filmed there. So you can check out this article. So there was also an article from Deadline.com that talked about the impact that the film had on the Georgia economy. It pumped about $89 million into the Georgia economy. Black Panther generates $89.3 million for the Georgia economy. Okay?
How much do you get?
Huh? Yeah. Now, also, when you read this article, now, they also, they hired about 3,100 people for the film as well. And they talked about how it pumped, I forgot exact number, tens of millions of dollars the people were paid, but they hired 3,100 people in Georgia, okay, for the film. A lot of those were African Americans in the Atlanta area. So this had a big impact. But there's other impacts on African American owned businesses as well. So this is an article from Black Enterprise, okay? Really good article from Black Enterprise. Black Panther movie success sends demand for African attire through the roof. Black Panther movie success sends demand for African attire through the roof. And this sister is Atim Oten, A-T-I-M. And she owns and runs Calabar Imports in New York. She owns 3 businesses in the New York area. Okay? But she told Black Enterprise, yes, we at Calabar Imports planned ahead as we were expecting a spike in sales from our current customers and also new customers that we would gain during that period in our 3 locations. Okay? Now, we found out in 2016 that the film was coming out in 2018, because 2016 is when we first saw the Black Panther character in Captain America Civil War. But in doing research, I found that as far back as 2014, we knew this film was coming out. So if you had 2 years prior notice that the film was coming out, what did you do to position yourself to be able to profit off of the film? So when I hear people talking about, oh, black people not making any money off of the film, I say, how did you position yourself? Success is where preparation meets opportunity. How did you position yourself to profit off of the film? This sister positions herself. She said that they ordered several types of dashikis, clothing, and jewelry ahead of time. She said we also made head wraps, headbands, and scarves, which were bought in middle January when sales really began. She said, as we represent several designers, we brought out more of their clothing earlier in January, something we typically bring out in February. So this film was strategically released in February, and my background is in marketing. That's a good marketing strategy. That's African American History Month. That just makes sense, okay? Read this article from blackenterprise.com. Black Panther movie success sends demand for African attire through the roof. Okay? And in the article, she talks about how at their Bed-Stuy location on Tompkins Avenue and Madison Street in Brooklyn, she said sales were up 60%. She said we had more foot traffic, about 60% more than the week before the film's release, and sales were hitting numbers as high as 140% in each of the stores. Okay, so this sister is smart. All right, now there's an article from it's another article. Black Panther brings unexpected boost to makers of African-inspired clothing. All right, and this is from myajc.com, My Atlanta Journal-Constitution. myajc.com, okay? And they talk to some different African and African American store owners as well. Let's take a look at this clip here.
I'm excited to see just all the beautiful brown people represented in a positive light.
I think it's very indicative of where we are as a culture. The push for diversity, inclusion, equal pay, all of that. So I think it's just timely.
Oh, you know, it was just one of those things that I had to do in terms of feeling that level of connection with today is so profound and so special and important in terms of where I come from.
Wherever you want me to be.
If I was a kid and I saw Black Panther, that would have been great. When I grew up on like Spider-Man. I still love Spider-Man, but I grew up with a lot of heroes and none of them looked like me at all. And I still love those heroes, but I can imagine being a kid and seeing, you know, kid character that look like me. I'd be pretty hyped.
I've never had an opportunity for this before. I've never gone to a theater to see a film like this before, so I just really needed to go all out.
To see something where you have an all-black cast coming together, this is big. This is very big.
Hey, Mike, what's the director? Yeah. Ryan Coogler.
As a child, I've been into like geeky, nerdy things and everything, and with sci-fi, and I loved it. African American heroines get to be portrayed this way.
Somebody that looks like me is the superhero, you know, and nobody's whitewashing it, and it's beautiful.
I'm excited that they're painting Africa in a different light than what we normally see. So it's just a big moment.
Like everybody has a James Bond or they have a Laura Croft.
But to have a Black Panther who's got a bulletproof suit, he really can't get hurt, and he's a great man, oh yeah, that's something I can look up to, so I like it.
Okay, so that was from, that was my Atlanta Journal-Constitution, my AJC.com. They had this article, Black Panther brings unexpected boost to makers of African-inspired clothing. I talked to a sister that has a store in Greektown Casino. She talked in the Greektown area. She talked about how she saw an increase in sales because people were buying African attire to go to the premiere of the film. Okay, and on Facebook I talked about how there are more people wearing African garb to go see the film Black Panther than wearing African garb going to Kwanzaa celebrations. Okay, but that's a good thing because people are happy and feel happy about identifying with African history and African culture. So in this article, very briefly, from February 15, 2018. So the film debuted nationwide February 16, Friday, February 16, 2018. Atlanta-based clothier Charlene Dunbar saw an uptick in sales of her Swakoko Betty brand this week thanks to the Black Panther movie. She said, I have definitely had a spike, and she's a native of Liberia who has been designing her brand of modern African clothing for a decade. She said, I am excited to see more of an appreciation of African culture, whether it is in the fashion industry or beyond, okay? And a similar trend emerged at Dupsey's African Clothing in Smyrna, Georgia. While there is usually a spike in business during Black History Month this year, that increase has been even more pronounced with the release of Black Panther, says shop owner James Onabajo, who has been fielding calls from out of state. He said, quote, I think people are more comfortable wearing African clothing. Now, more African Americans and Black people are, in general, trying to show off their heritage, okay? Interest in African and African-inspired clothing has been on the rise for several years, but having a blockbuster film that puts the beauty of African style on display is something many American moviegoers have never seen. I've never seen anything like this before. Closest thing was Coming to America in 1988, okay? But I've never seen anything like this before on this level in African Americans wanting to wear African garb to the movies. And I think it's going to continue April 27th, 2018, when Avengers Infinity War comes out, because many of the characters from the Black Panther are in the film, because a lot of the film takes place in Wakanda, all right? Now, but it gets even better, okay? Because you got a Wakanda convention coming up in August of 2018 in Chicago.
Filling theaters for Black Panther. The film has inspired people with a new vision of Africa. ABC 7's Karen Jordan has more about the impact of this hit flick.
Black Panther is continuing to break records at the box office. Now it's earned more money than the blockbuster Titanic. So it's no surprise that there is a clear Black Panther effect.
It's a wonderful movie, man. I went to see it a couple of times, and I'm going back again.
Alesane Sumari of Kyra Imports in Chatham says his business has been cashing in on the success of Black Panther. More people have been coming in the past couple of months buying African clothing, even getting custom-tailored outfits made, like this prom dress. Sumari says the movie has caused his customers to want to display their African heritage.
We look forward to see again another this type kind of movies, you know, because it makes us really stay in business.
Abdul Brima with the African Festival of the Arts in Washington Park anticipates large crowds during the festival this Labor Day and even hopes to have a Black Panther screening.
I had to go and see it with my children. You know, I was so happy to see it.
The popularity of the movie has also inspired the very first WakandaCon, a fan convention for all things Black Panther, taking place here at the Hilton later this summer.
Our theme is celebrating Afrofuturism, which is science fiction based on imagining a different future and a different world for the African diaspora.
Tickets for WakandaCon went on sale today, and already 300 have been sold, a sign that the movie continues to resonate with audiences. Karen Jordan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, so ABC 7 Chicago has an article from April 11th, 2018, just a few days ago. Black Panther inspires African fashions, first Wakanda Con in Chicago. Now some people may say, well, why are you going to have a Wakanda convention? You ain't saying anything with all these Star Wars conventions all over the place, year after year after year, okay? Now, I guarantee there will be African-American vendors there selling their products. You're going to have African-American comic book lines, things like that there. And I'll be there also. I'll be there as well. I'm telling you right now. Oh, I'll be there. Because I'm already on their email list. So I got the email a couple of days ago about this, right? I first found out about this maybe a little more than a month ago. And I went to their website and signed up for their email. So, I'll be there as well. The popularity of the movie has also inspired the very first Wakanda Con, a fan convention for all things Black Panther at the Hilton later this summer. So check out this article, Black Panther inspires African fashion's first Wakanda Con in Chicago. Now, Maya Crown Williams, who many of you know here in Detroit, she does the Mecca Con, African American comic book convention, and she had a screening of the film Black Panther. There have been African Americans who had screenings across the country. They rented out theaters, had screenings, made a profit, made money off of it. But the African American comic book conventions taking place all across the country, those are going to be sold out. Because this film is fueling interest in African American comic book lines, Afrofuturism, things like this. Now, when the movie premiered that weekend on AM Joy, MSNBC, Joy Ann Reid had Erica Alexander on her show. Now, Erica Alexander we saw on the Cosby Show as Cousin Pam, and we saw her in Living Single as Attorney Maxine Shaw. She is a co-founder of an African-American comic book series, and she was on the show talking about it, promoting it. That's just they're going to make some money, okay? So you have African-Americans making money off of the movie, which we should, but the question is, position yourself. Success is what preparation meets. When you read articles about the film from news1.com, thegrill.com, yourblackworld.net, which I can contribute content for and write some articles for, AtlantaBlackStar.com, Black America Web, those are all African-American owned and operated. There's ad revenue generated when you click on those ads. That generates revenue for these companies, okay? When they have YouTube videos, and the YouTube videos, they're reporting on the news, and the YouTube video has an ad in it that helps generate revenue. So they're African-American businesses making money off of this. They were running ads on TV One promoting the film. The ads weren't free, you gotta pay TV One. On news1.com, TV One's owned by Kathy Hughes, news1.com owned by Kathy Hughes, okay? On news1.com, the weekend this film premiered, there's a huge ad right on the homepage. That costs money. Okay, so when people saying, oh, the black community ain't making no money, no, you just ain't making any money because you weren't positioned properly. Okay? All right. In Brazil, this is having an impact in Brazil. Okay? It sparked a black money movement in Brazil. Now, we know that Brazil has the largest population of African people outside the continent of Africa. There are at least 100 million people in Brazil of African descent, Afro-Brazilian or mixed. They make up 51 to 52% of the Brazilian population, okay? So there have been articles from AtlantaBlackStar.com and QZ.com, Quartz Africa, all right? QZ.com had an article. The self-sufficiency of Black Panther's Wakanda is inspiring Afro-Brazilians to look to their own. Wait a second, I thought this was just a fictitious movie, okay? This is real. Okay, QZ.com, the self-sufficiency of Black Panther's Wakanda is inspiring Afro-Brazilians to look to their own. And they talk about, there's also an article from theroot.com. Black Panther inspires Black Brazilians to occupy white dominant spaces. So they talk about how it's caused Afro-Brazilians to participate in a form of protest called Rosino Protoi, which translates into Black Stroll, S-T-R-O-L-L. And a recent article from the Intercept.com explains this influence from Black Panther has shown up in Brazil in the form of this protest, in which large groups of Afro-Brazilians turn up together to walk about an area. The stroll has a recent history of being a form of protest in Brazil. In the article from the Intercept, one group of Afro-Brazilians coordinated a Rosino to watch the film Black Panther at one of Rio de Janeiro's most exclusive high-end shopping malls called Leblon. As the writer notes, Leblon is couched in one of the most affluent areas in Brazil, And it's also a predominantly white space in a country where the majority of the population now identifies as black or mixed race, okay? But there's also having there's a black money movement that's been created as well, okay? So in this excerpt from the article from QZ.com, it says for Afro-Brazilians like Rodrigo Franca, the success of Black Panther represents showed that blacks could organize for a common goal that was strongly connected to spending money. Quote, for us, the success of Black Panther was a grand example of how much we have to consume, and it also showed the potential of how we can consume products that are related to our representation, products that will respect our culture, okay? And he is a social scientist, philosopher, and actor. He said, if we stop buying from racist companies and companies that do not engage in diversity, those companies will not survive. Okay? So when we look at this article from QZ.com, they talk about how Afro-Brazilians were renting out theaters and having these screenings of the film. And in some of these screenings, they were, instead of showing the movie trailers, they were promoting black-owned companies and products and things like this. But these gatherings were not only celebrations of black pride protests against racial exclusion, they were also a positive signal to the mainstream and Afro-Brazilians themselves that they could economically support products that represented them on a large scale. Since the debut of Black Panther in Brazil, the black money movement, the idea that black Brazilians can use their money to support black businesses, has gained steam, and support has even crossed over into mainstream media also, okay? So this is an example of the impact it's having in Brazil. So you can check out that article from QZ.com as well. And in one of these articles, it talked about how the impact that it had on the way they see themselves. Let's see. Which one was it? Because one of them said it made them proud to be black or something. Let's see. Okay. All right. So Franco went on to say, we don't have this culture for money. We don't have this culture for money to leave black hands and go directly into another black person's hand. Due to the myth of the racial democracy, some black people think it doesn't matter if they support black products. Now, this is an Afro-Brazilian saying this. Black Brazilians hold both economic and entrepreneurial potential, as black folks comprise the majority of business owners in Brazil. Most are one-person businesses, like in the U.S. However, as black people have historically been shut out from building wealth via large-scale entrepreneurship, simply because they lack the capital and access to funds to do so, okay? The entrance of a film like Black Panther created a positive space where people could start to think positively about black money, okay? And then in the one from The Root, okay, yeah. In the article from The Root entitled Black Panther Inspires Black Brazilians to Occupy White Dominant Spaces, March 5th, 2018, from Anne Brannigan. Okay, they talked to Igor Marino, M-A-R-I-N-H-O. He's a 28-year-old student in Brazil who participated in a recent Rosino Black Stroll protest and watched Black Panther for the first time. And he said that the movie's black majority cast filled him with pride. Okay, he's Afro-Brazilian. He said, quote, it makes me want to win. It makes me want to fight. It makes me like myself more, like my own skin tone, like my kind of hair, like the shape of my nose, like the shape of my lips, like myself more. Okay, he said this in the interview with The Intercept, the article from The Intercept. He went on to say, quote, because you start to see people who are like you and you see how they carry themselves, empowered, happy with themselves, and you start to like yourself better, end quote. Okay, this is from a fictitious movie. Okay, what you read, see, and hear impacts the way you think, feel, act, and behave. What you read, see, and hear impacts and affects the way you think, feel, act, and behave. All right, let's continue. Okay, so you have teachers who are using the film to then create curriculums and teach African history and the history of colonialism, things like this. There were a couple articles, one from Blavity.com, the other from thinkprogress.org. Now this sister, her name is Tess Racer, R-A-S-E-R, I think it's pronounced Racer because I follow her on Twitter. She's a 28-year-old teacher on the south side of Chicago. She teaches 6th grade, okay? She created a 46-page curriculum based upon themes from the film Black Panther. And she expounded on other lessons she's taught in the past, but she put it all together in a curriculum. Now, Tess Razor's students have been studying colonialism in Africa for a month now at the time this article was written. Next week, as part of the lesson plan, she intends to take her 6th graders to see Marvel's Black Panther. For Razor, who teaches at an elementary school in Chicago's South Side, Black Panther invites her students to meditate on Africa and its diaspora through the imaginary country of Wakanda. She is using the film to explore the legacy of colonialism in Africa, then racism in the United States. But when you look at the articles, one from thinkprogress.org and one from Blavity, she talks about going to see the film, how it impacted her, and how it caused her to think about different themes and important topics talked about in the film. So as a result, she put together a special curriculum using many of the resources she used or created before, including information she found elsewhere, to package a series of lessons that touch on previewing topics to look at before you go see the movie, okay? Like the legacy of colonialism, global anti-blackness, and African cultural representation in Black Panther, and then also post-viewing lessons as well after you see the film, dissecting individual characters and the film itself and the role of women in Wakanda. She said, quote, I created the curriculum for a couple of reasons. For starters, I love the movie but left with critiques as well, and spent most of the weekend engaging in conversations in regards to those critiques and my friends' analysis of the film and its characters. I was excited thinking about my students having those conversations as well, okay? And I looked at her curriculum, it's fantastic, okay? And she deals with the transatlantic slave trade, she deals with the civil rights movement, she deals with counterintelligence programs, she deals with the Black Panther Party for self-defense, she deals with different periods of time. She said, quote, I want to push black kids to critically engage the media and literature, especially when black bodies are centered. I've been working hard this school year to push my class, all black students, to have a deeper understanding of the African continent, its diversity, its connection to it. In the articles on this, they have a link to the, she has the curriculum online on Google's Doc, and you can download it for free, okay? So it's fantastic. And so this is something, if you do homeschooling, this is something you can use in homeschooling, this is something you can use with your children to supplement what's being taught or not being taught in their schools if they go to a traditional school, all right? Okay, but we have other themes in the film as well. So there was a video of Ryan Coogler. Now Ryan Coogler is the director of the film. He's African American, he's 31 years old. This is only his 3rd movie that he directed, okay? His first movie was Fruitvale Station, starring Michael B. Jordan, who's Eric Killmonger in the film. And that was about the life of Oscar Grant, who was killed by a transit officer. And then the second movie was Creed, which was, I think, the 7th installment in the Rocky franchise, about Apollo Creed's son, played by Michael B. Jordan, right? That was his second movie. Then he got this blockbuster movie that's done $1.3 billion worldwide. It's already announced that Black Panther, they're going to make a Black Panther 2. They don't know what the hell they're going to do. They know they're going to make another one, right? He'll probably be the director there. Just a few years ago, Ryan Coogler was living in his car. He was homeless, okay? So he co-wrote the script along with Joe Robert Cole, who's African American as well, his writing partner, all right? And there's a video of Ryan Coogler explaining the film, and he breaks down this scene. And he breaks down the red, black, and green. And he talks about how the Pan-African flag is red, black, and green, and he says this is why they're wearing green, black, and red here in this scene, okay? He put that in the film. This ain't something that I interpreted. I actually heard him say this, okay? There's a video where he's breaking down the film, and he breaks down like the fighting scenes and how they make different scenes, things like this. This is in the scene in the casino in Hong Kong. when we showed the clip earlier, and we saw Ruth Carter, right, who's the costume designer. That sister deserves an Oscar. She deserves everything. An Oscar, Grammy, everything. Yeah. Whatever she can get, she deserves. All right? Lupita Nyong'o studied martial arts. She studied jiu-jitsu, she studied Salat, she studied Indonesian martial arts. I can tell by what she's doing in the scene. And in the scene in the casino, she's wearing high heel shoes. She takes off one high heel shoe, she hits one guy in the face and does a wrist lock throw on the other one. When she does the wrist lock throw, and they showed it in the scene I showed earlier, she has one high heel shoe on and one high heel shoe off. And that's hard to do, okay, when you're not balanced correctly. But this is to put in some work preparing for this scene, okay? And this scene here, Danny Guerrero, General Okoye, is in disguise. That's why she's wearing the wig. She couldn't wait to take it off, though. She thought it was stupid, all right?
She weaponized it.
She weaponized it. She threw it at one of the opponents, all right? So when we look at some of the African cultural influences, right, and then this is towards the end of the presentation, when we look at some of the African cultural influences, there are a lot of them, okay? Here are a few of them. Now, there was a big article from the New York Times, February 23rd, 2018, the Afro-futuristic designs of Black Panther. This is Ruth Carter, the costume designer for Black Panther. For her extraordinarily detailed costumes, Ruth E. Carter studied the garments of the Maasai, who are in Kenya and Tanzania, and other African tribes. A 3D printer was also important. Now, you all familiar with 3D printers? 3D printers are actual printers that can actually, instead of printing on paper, they actually produce a product. They actually make something. This is a new type of printer. They're very expensive now, but they're going to come down. So I've seen a car actually produced with a 3D printer. It took 2 days. They're producing all different types of things. They're producing casts. They're producing busts. Statues, all different types of things being produced by 3D printers. Google that and you can get some information. Now, the costume designer Ruth E. Carter said she did not know much about the Marvel Universe, but said, I really wanted this movie. She was also the costume designer for the film Malcolm X. She talked about how this wasn't her hardest film to make the costumes for. She said Malcolm X was harder because you're making costumes for different periods of time. When you study Malcolm, you do 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you're dealing with different time periods as well. So you got to make costumes for all these people, okay? Now, here's some of the African cultural influences. We see influences from the Basotho in Lesotho, which is in southern Africa, okay? And they have these blankets, okay, that they wear that have African cultural significance. And we see in the film, we see them with the blankets, the warriors with the blankets as well, right here, okay? Now, let's continue here. Okay, now, the Basotho heritage blankets, right? These blankets have a deep cultural significance and history. The world-renowned Basotho tribal blankets distinguish this nation from others by the way in which the blankets are worn as part of their everyday life. The designs have been developed over many years with the blessing of the Lesotho royal family. Okay, so there is a website, Aranda, R-A-N-D-A, aranda.co.ca, which talks about the Basotho blankets. And the Basotho are a tribe of warriors disguised as simple farm. Okay, so the Basotho, they're in southern Africa, in the country of Lesotho. Now, in the film Black Panther, you have a tribe of warriors disguised as simple farmers, okay, who protect Wakanda's borders. Their most distinctive costume features are the blanket cloaks they wear, the traditional gear of the Basotho people. In Lesotho, which is a mountainous country surrounded by South Africa, which gets snow in the winter, the Basotho blanket holds deep significance, okay? So they talk about the blanket here at the website aranda.co.za, and you can buy the blankets there, okay? And they say what makes the Basotho blankets unique is the layout of the design, the various symbols used, the bold color combinations, and the characteristic pinstripe. the characteristic pinstripe that you see, vertical pinstripe. These stripes were originally a weaving fault, which has become a unique part of the design and dictates how the blanket is worn. When worn in the traditional manner, the pinstripe runs vertically, symbolizing growth. Okay, the corn cob that you'll see on some of the blankets, the corn cob is the most widely used motif throughout the range of the Basotho heritage blankets. In Basotho culture, maize, M-A-I-Z-E, is the staple food, and therefore the corn cob is a symbol of fertility and wealth. The more prestigious Santa Marina design features more corn cobs than the everyday wearing blankets, okay? All right, so you can check that out. There's some background information there. But we see this influence from Southern Africa, from the Lesotho, okay? And then we see the Wakandan script from the Nsabidi, which is from Nigeria, the actual script of the Wakandan language, okay? That comes from Nigeria. In several scenes in the movie, the Wakandan text appears on the screen and is inscribed on the walls of T'Challa's throne room. In reality, though, the script draws inspiration from Nsabidi with origins in modern-day Cross River in southeast Nigeria. So far, the Nsabidi symbols that have been discovered number in hundreds, but it's possible even more are in existence. While the script is still sparingly used in Nigeria's southeast, colonization, particularly education and religion, have drastically reduced its use, all right? Then we see the influence from the Ndebele, who are in South Africa, but the Ndebele also live in Zimbabwe as well. We see it in the neck rings that General Okoye wears, but the Dora Milaje wear this. Now, the ones that General Okoye wears are gold. The ones that the other Dora Milaje wear are silver. And the Dora Milaje are the African female warriors who are the personal bodyguards to King T'Challa, okay? And they protect Wakanda also. But we see it amongst the Ndebele. Now, the gold rings worn around the necks of the Dora Milaje come from the Ndebele tribe of South Africa, known as Ndezila. Only married Ndebele women may wear the rings, even though they've become something of a fashion trend in South Africa recently. Traditionally, husbands are supposed to provide the rings once they have built their home for their wives. The wealthier a husband is, the more rings a woman has. Okay? We see influence from Namibia, from the Ovahimba in Namibia, and the hairstyles. Now, this is a scene straight out the movie. This is from the ritual scene of the combat, okay, to take the throne in Wakanda. And you see this sister here with the locks, with the puffs at the end, okay? And that comes from the Ovahimba of Namibia. Now, one of the elders in Wakanda wears the distinctive locks of the Ovahimba women, sculpted in a type of paste, Otage's paste, made of butter, fat, red okra, and scented with herbal aromatics, okay? Ovahimba plait or twist, the Ovahimba plait or twist their hair into thick locks, often leaving ends to puff, as we see here, okay? Living in the unforgiving desert climate of northern Namibia, Ovahimba also protect their skin with the red Otage's paste. How you pronounce that word? Crazy. I think it's Otage's or something. O-T-J-I-Z-E. I think it's Otage's or something like that.
That's close enough.
Yeah. But it's a paste that they use. This is where they get the red tint from of their skin. Okay? This is an Ovahimba woman in Namibia. All right? We see influence from the Zulu of South Africa as well, in the disc-type hat that Angela Bassett wears. This comes straight out of South Africa, okay? So Angela Bassett, as Queen Mother Ramonda, makes an entrance with a large disc headdress. And most of the scenes, she wears a smaller version of the hat, which Ruth Carter borrowed from Zulu culture. The isikolo is a hat worn by married women and was traditionally shaped from grass fronds with cotton woven through. Their sizes and colors differ between clans, at times reaching a meter in diameter. For Black Panther, Ruth Carter had Ramonda's dramatic white Issy Colo hat 3D printed, according to an interview that she did with Vanity Fair. Okay, so we see this influence from the Zulu of South Africa. All right. Then we see influence from the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania. So this brother right here in the scene, he is a protector of this system. His costume is influenced from the Maasai. A tribal elder draws on Himba tradition, while her guardian draws on Maasai culture. Okay, and when we look, so we see this here, and we also see the Maasai culture influencing the costumes that the Dora Milaje wear as well. Okay, and it says the Dora Milaje with their deep red armor and tall spears come from the Maasai, look like Maasai warriors, which was the look Ruth Carter was going for. The Maasai shuka is instantly recognizable as the red and blue checkered, sometimes with black, yellow, or green, but red is always the base color, shawl, it's a shawl that they wear, okay, over the shawl draped over the semi-nomadic Maasai. So we see influence from the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania. We see influence from the Zulu. We see influence from the Obahimba, etc. Huh? You have men here and you have women down here. You have men standing up with the warriors with the shields and the spears. Okay, these are men up here. Okay,
Didn't they have the big ring in their lip?
That's coming. Just a second. I got that too. That's from the Mercy in Ethiopia. Okay, when we look at the Dora Milaje, right? The Dora Milaje were introduced in 1998, Black Panther Volume 1, 1998. Dora Milaje means the adored ones, okay? And these were the brides in training to the king of Wakanda. Each one of the 18 tribes in Wakanda donated or presented one of the brides in training who became the personal bodyguards of King T'Challa. But it's believed that they're based upon the African female warriors, the Ahozi, or the Mino, who Europeans called the Dahomey Amazons, okay, who were female warriors amongst the Bo people in Dahomey, which is present-day Benin, 17th century to the 19th century, okay? Now, the fearsome Dora Milaje have long been a feature of Black Panther comics, but the all-female military unit are believed to be inspired by a real-life version of the female soldiers which existed from the 1600s in Dahomey, present-day Republic of Benin in West Africa. In the movie, the group is led by American Zimbabwe actress Danny Gurira, and primarily acted as bodyguards to King T'Challa. However, in their day, the Dahomey Amazons, as they were named by Western historians, fought wars for the kingdom, most notably against the French forces. They were involved in the Franco-Dahomean War of 1890. Okay, now
tell them about those heads.
Oh, just a second. So, AtlantaBlackStar.com has a good article. 10 fearless black female warriors throughout history. 10 fearless black female warriors throughout history, where they talk about this. And the warriors were known, they were ferocious warriors with a reputation for decapitating soldiers in the middle of battle, as well as those who are unfortunate to become their captives, okay? Now, the film Black Panther, because it's breaking records, because it's showing that a predominantly African-American cast can sell well overseas. It did $63 million opening weekend in China, okay? It's doing well in Brazil, done $1.3 billion worldwide. You're going to see a change in some of the movies that we see coming out next, okay? Because one of the things that Hollywood says is that, well, we can't have a predominantly African-American cast because the movie doesn't sell well overseas. This is breaking records. It's showing that's not true, all right? Now, there's a movie that's already been announced, don't have a release date, but it's called The Woman King, okay? The Woman King. And it's going to be about a real mother-daughter relationship who are the Dahomey Amazons, okay? It's going to star Viola Davis and Lupita Nyong'o. It's coming from Viola Davis and her husband's production company, okay? And the film will follow Naniska and her daughter Nawi, played by Lupita Nyong'o, will play the daughter, who have battled the French along with nearby tribes, quote, who violated their honor, enslaved their people, and threatened to destroy everything they lived for, end quote, okay? There's an article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, Lupita Nyong'o and Viola Davis to star in a movie about the real female warriors of Black Panther, March 2nd, 2018. In the article, 10 Fearless Black Female Warriors Throughout History, they talk about the Dahomey Amazons, or Mino, was an all-female military regiment of the Bo people of the Kingdom of Dahomey that existed from the 17th century to the end of the 19th century. While European narratives refer to the women soldiers as Amazons because of their similarity to the semi-mythical Amazons of ancient Anatolia, they call themselves Ahosi, which means king's wives. Just like the Dora Milaje were the adored ones, and they're the brides in training to the king of Wakanda. Okay, they also call themselves Mino, M-I-N-O, which means our mothers. All right, so check those out from AtlantaBlackStar.com. But you got African culture, which relates to history, all throughout the film. All right, so we see an influence from the Igbo of Nigeria as well, in the mask that Killmonger takes from the museum, okay, I think it's in Britain, England, okay, and uses this when they go to break Ulysses' claw out of the interrogation, okay. In one of the early scenes in the movie, Michael B. Jordan's character visits a London museum for a heist, during which he steals a menacing long-horned mask, complete with a mane. It appears to have drawn inspiration from the Mbedeke, a relic of Igbo origins in southeast Nigeria. Mbedeke translates as time of the brave, and is used during local rituals. While there are various versions, the masks typically depict aggression with features such as horns and bare teeth. Okay? So then we have the Ethiopian influence with the lip plates, okay, from the Mercy of Ethiopia. And that's what he has right here. Also has them in his ears. Now, one of the most distinctive cultures apparent in Black Panther is a lip plate worn by a Wakandan elder in the throne room. Lip plates are drawn from the culture of the Mercy in Ethiopia and are also seen among Chai and Terma, for whom it is a source of pride and also identity. While the lip plate in the movie is worn by a man, the lip plates are typically worn by women. In the Mercy culture, teenage girls have their lower lips cut to allow for the lip plate, just like some teenage girls have their lip pierced and their tongue pierced. Okay? Until the wound heals, the cut is held open by a wooden plug, after which the opening is stretched further by inserting larger plates over time. All right? Then we have an influence from the Dogon. The Dogon are in Mali and Burkina Faso, but the Dogon come from ancient Kemet. Okay? The Dogon masks were brought into the movie Black Panther. There was a lot of inspiration taken from the Dogon people. They live in the central plateau region of Mali and West Africa. They're also in Burkina Faso. Okay? And we know that the Dogon have a superior knowledge of astronomy. The Dogon come from ancient Kemet, and the Dogon had knowledge of the Sirius A and Sirius B star systems before European astronomers knew about this as well. There's an article from AfricanGlobe.net, AfricanGlobe.net, which talks about the Dogon and their relationship to ancient Kemet as well. And I got that article here.
There's a book called The Pale Fox.
The Pale Fox, yeah. The Pale Fox, which deals with Dogon mythology and things like that. Let's see here, where is that? Okay, the Dogon, from the Nile Valley to the Kingdom of Mali. This is from AfricanGlobe.net, January 5th, 2013. The Dogon, from the Nile Valley to the Kingdom of Mali. Okay, they talk about Dogon astronomy and cosmology. Sirius A was called Sigi Tolo. Sirius B called Potolo. So you go research that. I did with that in some other presentations, like when I talk about the history of Christmas, things like that. All right, now the film shows African women and African American women in a positive light also. And there was an article from Anika Reed for USA Today that talked about this: 5 ways that Black Panther celebrates and elevates Black women. Okay, and we see African women are not the damsels in distress in this film. They're fighting side by side with the men, and they're saving the men. Okay, we see the scene where T'Challa is thrown off Warrior Falls, and it's going to be his mother and Kia and his sister who nurse him back to health. and help him fight. They go back and they go back and fight, and he goes back and fights Eric Killmonger. Okay, so she said, walking out of the theater, I felt fulfilled as a black viewer and as a woman, which rarely happens simultaneously with mainstream movies. Black Panther is Marvel's attempt at being woke, and it confronts colonialism, racism, and nationalism in profound ways, while also crafting a vision of black womanhood that's both inspiring and empowering. Okay, so here, so she said, one movie isn't going to eradicate racism or gender or fix gender or racial issues in America, but it's a step in the right direction. Representation in pop culture matters, and the women of Black Panther are celebrated and validated throughout the film in powerful ways. Okay, so here's some of the things she lays out. Black women are the real main characters. Okay, even though the movie is named for a male superhero, the women of Black Panther are at the forefront of the story. They're not sidekicks. They're at the forefront. They're not the damsel in distress. They are kicking butt in the movie. Much like the animal kingdom, in which female wildcats hunt and maintain control, the women are the ones in control of the throne and the society of fictional Wakanda. Lupita Nyong'o's Nakia saves the day when T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, chokes. Little sister Shuri, Letitia Wright saves the Everett K. Ross, rather than the typical white savior plot. And Danny Guerrero's Army General Okoye is thrilling in battle, but knows when to end the fight. At least one of the women is in almost every scene. We see that the women don't need superpowers to be superheroes either in the film. The only one with superpowers is T'Challa, but the women are kicking butt and a force to reckon with as well. Their technological advancements that they make in the battles they fight are because of their intelligence and inner strength rather than a potion or a power. We see that there are layers to these characters as well. What a concept. Black women don't come in one stereotypical shape and size. The women are nuanced characters who portray positive and strong versions of black femininity without falling into the sassy black friend or the ghetto black girl or the independent black woman who don't need no man tropes. I could see women like myself and my friends in the movie, and that positive visibility is priceless. We see that dark-skinned women are important in a big budget studio film. We see most of the women in the film are brown skinned or dark skinned women. They're beautiful women, they're feminine as well. Colorism is real in black communities worldwide, and it's especially prevalent in Hollywood when it comes to the types of black women who play leading roles in films and get nominated for awards. Black women with lighter skin tones have undeniably achieved the most mainstream success in the entertainment industry, and it's a refreshing change to see women with dark skin and afros taking control of the narrative in a film that's guaranteed to be a huge box office hit. And here we have a Hong Kong scene out in the street, General Okoye fighting out in the street as well. Okay, number 5, black women and girls can see themselves on the screen. Black women and girls can see themselves on the screen. Black women and girls can see in a major studio movie that their contributions matter, both in the work that the characters do and in the fact that these actors made it to this level of Hollywood, of the Hollywood stratosphere. Young black girls who may have been ashamed to wear clothing specific to their African parents' home country might be prouder of their heritage upon leaving the theater. Black women who have been shown almost exclusively straight hair on screen for the better part of the last few decades might be inspired to wear their hair naturally. Okay? So this is huge. Now, she goes on to say, and if the movie becomes as big a success as predicted, there's a strong possibility that generations of black women and girls will live in a society where it's normal to see a majority black cast in a major Hollywood film. All right? So now, just one second. So now, also, right, they're talking about how Shuri's character, okay, who's the younger sister to T'Challa, can inspire African-American girls to go into the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, because she's the one that created this technology. She's the one that creates the enhancements to the suit. She's the one that creates the sneakers that he wears so he can sneak up on people and they don't make any noise. She creates this technology, okay? So there's an article here, HuffingtonPost.com. Black Panther actress Letitia Wright hopes Shuri inspires more girls to pursue STEM, okay? And in this article, it said she plays everyone's favorite new Disney princess in her breakout Black Panther role. She told Huffington Post how much it meant to both her and the film's audiences for director Ryan Coogler and writer Joe Robert Cole, co-writer, to write Shuri as a multi-dimensional character. The actress also says she hopes young girls will unlock their potential when watching Shuri, especially when it comes to STEM. Well, women of color made up less than 10% of working scientists and engineers in the U.S. in 2015. And when we look at the enhancement she made to his suit, right? His suit stores energy, so when you shoot at it or punch it, it operates basically like kinetic energy. It stores that energy. He can release it at any time. She said, I hope it inspires them, and I hope it does so positively. I hope it sparks the next person, okay? So this is an article from Huffington Post, February 21st, 2018. But you have a whole initiative right now, and Verizon was running articles in March of 2017 during March Madness called #WeNeedMore to get more children into the STEM fields. So this was commercials running during the NCAA games, during the Final Four in March 2017. And the commercials star LeBron James, Adriana Lima, who is a model, and Drew Brees, football quarterback, okay, from the Saints, New Orleans Saints. And they're telling kids, we don't need more athletes, we don't need more soccer players, we don't need more football players, we need more scientists, okay? So Adweek.com had an article about this, by this title, LeBron James and Adriana Lima tell kids to be scientists, not celebrities, in Verizon spot. Millions of young Americans want nothing more than to be the next LeBron James. But the Cavs forward and frequent pitch man has a different message for kids. The world doesn't really need more basketball stars. Drew Brees and Adriana Lima posit that the world doesn't really need more quarterbacks or supermodels either. Okay? So in the commercial, they show you this. They say there are about 2,800 pro football players. There are 850 pro soccer players, 5,800 models, 624 pro basketball players. But there are over 4 million available jobs in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay? So when you research this, they have initiatives. They talk about how to get this into your school. They have the earning potential of different jobs in the STEM field. This stuff is off the chart. It makes me want to go back to school. When I look at some of these jobs and the earning potentials, things like this. But this could encourage a lot of African American girls to go into the STEM fields. Okay? Yes, sister, you have a question?
I had a question about Danny's character, the original character in the comic book. You were talking about the rings around her neck and it being equated with being a wife and her wealthiness, but she wasn't married in the comic book, was she?
Yeah, no, but that's just something, a cultural aspect incorporated to the film.
Applied to that. I was curious though, because I had been told and I wasn't really sure. I hadn't researched myself, because I am curious about her character and her being chosen by the original writers in the comic to play the role that she did, being such I don't really like using the word aggressive, but being such a governing woman. And I was just curious about what she actually was, who she actually was.
Yeah, well, she's the personal body. She's like the personal bodyguard of King T'Challa.
Right, but her as an individual, she wasn't married. Was she in any kind of relationship? Was she?
In the comic book,
I was told that she had a same-sex relationship.
In the comic book, yeah. So there's a Wakanda. Comic book. Forgot the exact name. And in that comic book, she's in a same-sex relationship. There was a scene in the movie that was filmed that was a hint at that, but it was not. It's on the cutting room floor. It didn't make it into the film. But it was a hint at that. It wasn't overt, but there was a hint at that. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons, I'm glad they didn't put it in, number one. Number two, I think one of the reasons is because the film is PG-13. It's not a rated R movie. It's a PG-13.
Being same-sex makes it a rated R movie?
Well, it deals with another type of subject matter. So when you have movies, so that may be one of the reasons why they didn't put it in. Because when you have movie ratings, the ratings are based upon the subject matter in the film. It's based upon the subject matter, it's based upon the type of violence. Like in the film, you didn't have a lot of blood and guts. You see them fighting, but you don't see a lot of blood and guts in the film, because it's PG-13. when you see like a lot of blood and guts, usually there's like a rated R movie, and this is based upon a comic book also. Okay, so most of the Marvel movies have been PG-13. Most of the Marvel rating on them, because they know a lot of kids are going to the films also. All right, let's continue. Okay, so one of the things that you probably hear about, one of the things that you notice in the film, is that the women in the film have natural hairstyles as well. Okay, now here is Kathleen Cleaver from the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, former member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. This clip is about a minute. It's from late 60s, early 70s, okay? And she's explaining why they wore natural hairstyles back then. And she explains the impact that the culture had on them and how they changed in the way they perceived themselves and the standard of beauty they were operating based upon. Let's take a look at this.
This brother here, myself, all of us were born with our hair like this, and we just wear it like this because it's natural. Because the reason for it, you might say, is like a new awareness among black people that their own natural appearance, physical appearance, is beautiful and it's pleasing to them. For so many years, we were told that only white people were beautiful. Only straight hair, light eyes, light skin was beautiful. And so black women would try everything they could to straighten their hair, lighten their skin, to look as much like white women. This has changed because black people are aware. And white people are aware of it too because white people now want natural wigs. They want wigs like this. Dig it? Isn't it beautiful? All right.
Okay, so she's talking about the impact that the culture had on them and how it changed the way they saw themselves, what they felt was beautiful. Okay, all right. Now, Lupita Nyong'o, who plays Nakia, she was on Comedy Central, the Daily Show on Comedy Central, interviewed by Trevor Noah, and this question came up. You know, there are no women with straight hair in the film Black Panther. Okay. Here she explains why.
Even though it was a patriarchal society where people were going like, no, women served a different role at some point. Women had more in different cultures.
Yeah.
When you played your character and when you have Denai Guerrero, who's also amazing in this story, you guys are badass. And there is a scene that touches on something I thought was a rumor, but I found out is true, and that was no one had straightened hair in the movie.
Oh yeah.
No one had, the hair that was like usually a curly line on their hair. Why was that so important? Isn't it something that's important?
Well, I think it goes back to what is innately considered beautiful on the continent. You know, before the advent of the white man, black people on the continent were doing all sorts of things with their hair, right? So the idea of extensions and all that is not new. But the kind of shaming or rejecting of kinks and curls is new, and that did come with the white man.
Right.
And so in this story, Wakanda is a country that's never been colonized. They don't know the first thing about the white world.
Right.
And so they embrace themselves. They embrace themselves. They have their own sense of what is beautiful and their own sense of augmentation. And that's why you don't see any straight hair.
And you feel people connecting with this movie in an authentic, and also I want to say like a beautiful way, because it's not anti anything, it's just pro. It's pro, it's enjoying being black, it's enjoying all different aspects of being black.
Yeah.
I've noticed people in the streets becoming Wakandans.
Oh yeah.
Which is like Roy for instance went out to a Foot Locker, and then when he was done, the guy was like, "Have a good day, brother." I was like, this is like people are doing this now in the streets.
I know.
Have you noticed any of that?
Oh my God, yeah. So yesterday I took a walk. It was such a beautiful day yesterday in New York, and so I was undercover, and I took a walk to the park, and I came across this group of teenagers, and they were all barking like Mbaku.
So they were good. There's like a gorilla, it's a gorilla tribe that's powerful, and there's like the epic, like the
exactly. exactly, and they were doing that, and I was just so amused, and I was giggling to myself, and they were like, oh my God, one of them hadn't seen the movie, and they're like, you gotta see the movie so that we can make memes and shit. Yeah, it was incredible.
Is it a little bit strange for you? You were in 12 Years a Slave,
yeah,
right? People would come up to you and be like, oh, Lupita, that was amazing, that was a fantastic portrayal. And now you're in what was supposed to just be a superhero movie, but it feels like for this movie, people are asking you the deepest questions about blackness and African culture, and does the movie fix every single problem that black people face, and will this fix the errors of the past? It's a little bit overwhelming and lopsided for you.
It truly is, and I thought, okay, I did 12 Years a Slave, and the kinds of questions I got with that were deep, and I had to almost like study before I did my press tour. And then with this, I was like, this is easy. It's just a superhero movie, I'll just talk about like lifting weights or something. But then the questions are extremely deep, and people are really relating to this on a very deep level. I feel like I need a PhD just to like answer people's questions.
Right.
Okay, so there she is talking about explaining why there was they had natural hairstyles in the film. Okay, now operating based upon the African standard of beauty, and this is not attacking anybody, but it's understanding. Once again, they had never been colonized, right? So they're operating based upon the African standard of beauty. Okay, all right. So here is another scene from the film, and here you see they're wearing the blankets. The so-called blankets. You see the vertical stripe here. Now there was an article from NBCnews.com that talked about this. Who's the white guy? Who's the CIA agent, etc. But once again, to understand the film, you have to understand the Black Panther comic book. Okay, so yeah, why does a white CIA agent play the hero to Killmonger's villain in the Black Panther? All right. And first of all, he wasn't the hero.
Right.
He was a hero. He wasn't the hero. Okay? And it's like some people just wanted to find a problem with the film.
Maybe he was in their eyes.
Yeah, maybe he was in their eyes because they're operating out of white supremacy and racism. Okay? So, so the character is Everett K. Ross. Everett K. Ross comes from the comic books. He was created in the 1990s. He was created, when you look at the I've read some articles on this. He was created to bring more white readers to the Black Panther comic book, because a lot of the people who read, well, they say most of the people who read comic books are white males. All right, so in the comic book, he works for the State Department. He's an attorney for the State Department, and he's like the foremost authority on Wakanda. Okay, and in the comic book, he's an ally of the Black Panther. In the film, now he was in Captain America: Civil War. Okay. And in the film, so that came out in 2016. In the film, they made him a CIA agent for whatever reason. All right. Sometimes, some people say, well, it's more exciting for him to be a CIA agent than the State Department would have. Also in the film, Eric Killmonger is a former Navy SEAL, and he works for the CIA. And this is why there's a scene where Everett K. Ross said he's one of ours. Okay. So. People were saying, oh, well, he's the hero, blah, 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 and the CIA was involved in killing Patrice Lumumba and all this. Okay, he becomes an ally in the film, an ally of the Black Panther. In the scene in Hong Kong, when T'Challa is talking to him, you can see they have a history. But T'Challa tells him, Claw is coming with us, okay? Because they're there to get Claw. They have intelligence that Claw is there, and T'Challa says Claw is coming with us because Claw stole vibranium. All right. So he becomes an ally because when Eric Killmonger and his group come to break Claw out of the interrogation scene, he ends up taking a bullet for Nakia, okay, who is the love interest of T'Challa. All right, so he takes a bullet, gets shot in the back. They debate, what should we do? We can't leave him here to die. He's saving, what have you. So they take him back to Wakanda, and they heal him. Okay, and he becomes an ally. And they're trying to keep the vibrator. They're trying to keep Killmonger, who has become like Europeans and wants to use the technology to then oppress and rule the world like Europeans. This is ultimately, when you listen to what he's saying, this is what he's talking about. So he becomes an ally, helps them to fight and stop that from happening. Now, some people say, oh, well, the movie promotes the CIA. Well, the movie doesn't No, I don't think the movie promotes the CIA when you study it. If you look at during slavery, you had African American abolitionists that worked with white abolitionists. It doesn't mean that the African American abolitionists supported white supremacy. It doesn't mean that they believe in white supremacy. It means that they found some allies to help them fight against white supremacy, to fight against it, okay? If you look at the Haitian Revolution of 1791 to 1803, if you watch the documentary 1804 from director Tariq Sheet, they talk about in the film how the Haitians fought against the French, and the French had the Spanish and the British as allies. But the Polish were also allies of the Haitians to help them fight against these other Europeans. Okay? The Polish are never said to be the heroes. We know the Haitians were the heroes. The Haitians, they didn't support white supremacy, but they found some other people who were down with the cause to help them fight against this other enemy. Okay? So just because you have one guy who's a CIA agent that helps them doesn't mean the whole CIA is good. It's just maybe they found an ally. Okay? So you have some people who just want to say something negative about the film, so they have some type of relevancy, or they have some platform or something like that. But he's in the comic books. He's an ally of the Black Panther in the comic books. All right? So people have to understand this. All right. Now, okay, so we're going to wrap it up with that and take any of your questions. We have the DVDs over here. We have a 6 DVD bundle pack today. You get 6 of my presentations, including this one, for $50. And this one here, this is, I have this, the one I did last Thursday. This is 15. And then I'm going to mail you the one I did today also. So I'm going to get your name and address as well. Okay? All right, so hopefully you learned something from this. We'll take questions in just a second. Hopefully you learned something from this. I encourage people to see the film, study African history, read these articles, study what's behind the film as well. And this is an opportunity to connect African American children to African history because their minds are open. They want to learn. They want to learn, okay? So when you read some of these articles about how teachers are using this, they say you take something that the children are interested in and you relate the lessons to it.
A teachable moment.
It's a teachable moment, absolutely, okay? So with that, I want to say thanks for coming out today. I know it's supposed to be freezing rain sometime later on today. Santi Sana Imhotep, Wakanda forever, okay? And with that, Pete, I'll take your questions. And then also, if you came in late with accepting donations, because I had to pay for this venue, even though this event is free, I had to pay for this venue. So if you want to give a donation, we can do that as well. Yes, so we'll start here and go back. So we'll start with this sister here.
I noticed that a lot of young white guys have these big earrings with real big and open their ears. Is that coming from the black diaspora, you think?
Probably.
This possibly, I don't know it. I don't know for certain. It could be an influence from that. I don't know for certain. I see them. So I don't know. I know what you're talking about, and they have like a big disc in their ear, thing like that. So I don't know. They do. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the influence of that. It could be. It could be because we know they communists. But that particular one, I don't know.
Because I asked the white dude, and he said it is for fashion.
Well, it's for fashion, and you see some of them with dreadlocks, right? But that influence there with the ear, I don't know.
I've been saying that too.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I asked the white
we
dude.
can go by to buy. Instead of this, we can go by to buy black because we don't really know what not to.
Yeah. So there's some online directories. Okay. First, you can check out WeBuyBlack.com. WeBuyBlack.com. That is like a African American version of Amazon. WeBuyBlack.com. For some directories, you can look at Let's Buy Black. Let's Buy Black.com. There's a Let'sBuyBlack.com. There's a Let'sBuyBlack365.com. There is also Black Enterprise. At their website, blackenterprise.com, they do interviews and showcases on African American businesses like each month, all across the country. Okay. There's also AtlantaBlackStar.com. They write articles. Some of their articles they deal with African American owned businesses. AtlantaBlackStar.com. There's another directory, BlackTradeLines.com. There's another national directory of African American owned businesses. So those are just a few. Some of those directories, they have apps you can download to your phone also. Okay, as well.
One last one. I was on the radio right after the movie came out. This guy, he broke up with his white girlfriend because he said he saw Black Panther. He didn't want to be voluntary anymore.
Okay. All right. All right. I don't think I heard that. I don't think I heard that. Yes, Poison.
Yeah. Another point to be made in making comparisons between the fantasy and real life
yes.
parallels.
Yes.
Is the and it can be related to science and technology, and that is and the metal vibranium.
Yeah.
And the real life example of that is the Africans were first to smelt iron.
Yeah, smelt iron. And also it relates to, and similar to that is coltan. I can't remember if I mentioned it here. I've talked about it in other presentations. So coltan comes from the Congo. And coltan is a mineral that's used in technology. It's used in every laptop, every computer, every cell phone. It's used to make it work. And it comes from the Congo. You have Europeans in the Congo right now fighting over this mineral, which is similar to vibranium. Okay? Similar to vibranium. Yes?
Do they use the word vibranium as derivative from the word vibrations? Like just
now, I don't know.
Being a metaphor, period,
yeah,
not even an actual tangible.
I don't know. I know there's a relationship between vibranium and uranium. There was another article I was reading about the origins of them using the term vibranium in the comic book and how it related to the mineral uranium. But vibration, I don't know. I've been searching for some of the things.
They used it in the movie. It was also like if you don't have access to anything, you know, in your hand, you take your energy and use.
Yeah, it's just vibration. I don't know about that. I don't know. Yes, brother.
Well, I was going to answer that question.
Go ahead.
I'm a nerd. I read the comic books. Yeah, it is called vibranium because it does vibrate when it gets struck or hit with something.
Yeah.
It takes in that energy by vibrating.
Right.
So it doesn't crack.
Okay. Yeah, so it kind of dissipates the energy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Did I see another hand? Kuwait. Yeah, you had your hand up. Did I answer your question?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, you so.
Yes, brother. Go ahead.
So you know the whole Wonder Woman thing is they got all that from these woman warriors.
Yeah, the Amazons. Yes.
So why,
she's an Amazon warrior. She's actually the Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, like why when they always talk about Amazon, they always talk about like women being like 6 feet tall. Like she's an Amazon. Like that always.
It comes from that. So you have mythology that gets incorporated into the lexicon. And it gets used generation after generation. People don't know why.
It becomes the norm.
Yeah, it becomes no. People don't know why. It's just like, or it may be mythology, or maybe after a real person, like the term boycott. People use the word boycott, but they don't know the origin. That comes from Charles Cunningham Boycott, who around 1880, 1881 was an Irish land agent who was trying to get more money from his tenants. And they took actions against him to ostracize him, okay? And the actions they took against him became synonymous with his last name, boycott. And this is why when you have economic withdrawal strategies, they're called boycotts today. That comes from Charles Cunningham boycott in like 1881. But people don't know that. So you have these words, they're either from mythology or they're from real people, what have you. But they get put into the lexicon and handed down generation after generation. And people don't know why.
Boycott again, where does it come from?
That comes from Charles Cunningham Boycott, who was an Irish land agent in around 1881. He was trying to raise the price of the land for his tenants, and they took economic actions against him to withhold payments. The mailman refused to deliver his mail. There were different actions taken against him in protest, and the actions taken against him became synonymous with his last name. So when you have economic withdrawal strategies, it's called a boycott. That's named after him, but people don't know why. Okay? It's just like the term gerrymander. That comes from a politician, I think named last name Jerry and Salamander. Okay? Because that was the shape that the district was going to be redistricted in. It was shaped like a salamander. Okay? So Jerry and Mander. This is where this comes from.
And
so
sabotage.
Sabotage, yeah. So when you study the origin of a lot of these different words, they either relate to history, historical people, or they may relate to mythology. Okay, but people don't know why. All right. Did I see another hand? Okay. Yes, brother.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The warrior women, them dynamite.
The homemade?
Yeah, the homemade.
Okay.
I think I read something about them. Did they have a vow of chastity that they will not get married? They stay virgins their whole lives. They just serve the king.
In the comic book, the Dora Milaje did. With the homemade warriors, I remember reading. I can't remember if they did, but in the comic book, I know they did. The Dora Milaje did in the comic book. With the homemade warrior, I don't remember. Yeah, I've read about it, but I don't remember if they had. No, I think they did actually. I was reading an article about that. I think they did have a vow of chastity. I think they did.
Typically, at the foundation of most African cultures, you won't find them moving away from human activity that allows them to procreate. In other words, chastity, celibacy, and things such as that. You know, that's not a part of African culture.
Yeah, with them, I know in the comic book they did. With the Dora Milaje, with the homemade warriors, there was another article. I was reading something else about them, and I think it said something about that. I can't remember. I have to look at that. There was another article that I saw about that. From, I don't know, I had so many articles on that now. Okay. All right. So look, we'll wrap up with that, and then we have this presentation on DVD. Take debit cards and credit cards also. Oh, Sunday night. Okay, so be sure to listen to my radio show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. On 9, 10 a.m. the Superstation and the African History Network show. So we'll be on live tomorrow night. We'll be on live because I know I'm in Cleveland on the 29th, Sunday the 29th, so I can't do it live then. So we'll be on. All right. So did y'all learn anything?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.